Good evening, everyone. It's June 2nd, 2025. The 33rd meeting of the 26th Council will come to order. All councillors are present this evening, with Councillor Grout joining us via Zoom. We're going to start tonight with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance in English and in Spanish. Civic Plaza parking passes are provided for members of the public. You can obtain a parking pass from the council staff at the table near the chamber's entrance. Members of the public, city staff, and the media have the ability to view this meeting in person and on live streams through 4 different platforms: GovTV on Comcast Channel 16, the GovTV website, YouTube, and Zoom webinar. The live streams can be accessed from most smartphones, tablets, or computers. Also, this meeting is closed captioned and you may be in device at this time. The video recording of this and all past council meetings will remain available for viewing at any time on the City Council's website. Council staff is available via telephone if members of the public need assistance finding the videos online. Please call 505-768-3100 for assistance during business hours Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. The council will take a break at approximately 7 p.m. this evening if needed. With regard to decorum in the chambers, we want tonight's proceedings to be as civil and respectful as possible. Please do not make any personal attacks, and please no applause or snapping at one another or any outbursts during the meeting. The meeting will go a lot smoother if we are respectful of one another. We're going to start with proclamations and presentations. Tonight we do not have any proclamations, but our first presentation will be introduced by Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Madam President. We have a presentation from Deputy Chief J.J. Griot with Albuquerque Police Department, who will provide an update on APD's Language Access Program. This is one of the programs I had the privilege of working on in equity and inclusion when I worked for the administration, and really just excited. I know this J.J. Griot is going to be leaving us soon for retirement, and so I just really wanted to push up his work within APD, because him being an advocate for language access really helped us push this work forward in APD. And it's something that's really important to me, and so I just really wanted to give him some time to share his work and the progress that we've made. We don't often in this space talk a lot about this, but I'm really excited to have you talk about your work. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. I just want to say expositionally that language access is this is a human rights issue. We have worked very hard to establish the program that we are currently working off of. In my naiveness, when I first took over this program to implement what City Council mandated, I thought I could be the language access coordinator for the City of Albuquerque's police department. I quickly realized that was not the case, and it was a full-time job in and of itself for at least one person. So we did hire Jocelyn Segovia to be our language access coordinator. When we first started this project, you can go to the next slide. Right there. Okay, my apologies. So when we first started this project, we really didn't have an idea of the need for the program. We knew there was a need, but we didn't know how much of a need. So when we embarked on this mission to develop a policy and procedure, we met with the community groups to determine what's going to work best for not just the police department, but also the community at large. We gathered all the information, we agreed on some things, and we agreed to disagree on a couple of things, but for the most part, this is a community-driven policy. When we started, we were a little bit slow on starting to collect data to determine, how much or how great that need was, but as we progressed, you can do the next slide. We quickly saw that this was something that the Albuquerque Police Department needed. We can't say that we're community policing if we are leaving out a segment of that community. And what Jocelyn is going to talk about next is some of the data that we've been accumulating and how we're responding to that data. Jocelyn?
Hello. Thank you so much for having us. Thank you. Something that we realized early on that we could do is data collection. Really, our goal, other than translating and providing interpretation, is to institutionalize language access in the Albuquerque Police Department. So something that we started to do is use police reports and body cam footage to our advantage. And what I mean by that is that we started implementing systems to track our interactions with the public whenever there's a communication barrier. So over here, I can show you, we didn't have any, when I started, we didn't have any data that we could look at interactions, so we couldn't allocate our resources properly. So we established a label to quantify our police reports that do have those interactions that mention interaction with someone who's deaf or someone who speaks any other language. So here you can see from 2020, 2021, 2022, we didn't have any data on police reports. And since we established this measure, in 2024, we collected 671 police reports. So these are reports that we've identified that have a communication barrier. We know this is bigger because not all of the systems have this label that we can implement. So 671 is what we have in 2024. And then get the body cam footage and also show that in our trainings to tell our officers what these language barriers look like and when they should use an interpreter. Another data point that we're using is that we're looking at telephonic interpretation from our Emergency Communications Center. So we're collecting all that data on a monthly basis. And we started that in 2023. So in 2023, we found 10,717 calls where our staff in the ECC, Emergency Communications Center, had to use telephonic interpretation. That's for a language, any other language than English. Now, we know this number is higher as well because, as you know, if you don't speak English here, you may tell your neighbor to call 911. You may tell your daughter, you may tell your partner to call 911. So we do know that number is higher. Also, this data does not include or deaf and hard of hearing. And then in 2024, the number went up and we identified 12,556 calls where we needed telephonic interpretation.
So, and I know we're a little bit pressed for time, so I will make this brief. Some of the things that we've done, we've set up a station for ASL at the Northeast substation, so people who are deaf or hard of hearing can use visual at that station on an iPad. We do have other resources that we've implemented in the, Albuquerque that have gone actually statewide. For example, traffic tickets. What we did was we got with the state and we enabled our traffic ticket system to be able to print out tickets in different languages. So the person who gets the ticket can actually have a ticket in their own language. There's a lot more that we have to do. As you can see, there's over 12,000 calls for service that required interpretation, but only 671 reports that we identified. So our next chapter is closing that gap and determining where we can improve on those measures. And with that, we will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Deputy Chief. Councilors, Councilor Champagne.
Thank you, Madam President. I just have two. One, thank you for the presentation, Deputy Chief. How many calls does APD take annually?
We get 1.1 million phone calls, and that results in about 500,000 calls for service.
Okay. And how much AI are you using in this technology to help with the translations? And
we try to avoid machine language translation at this point because it's not quite up to that level. So we use very little machine language interpretation. If we get a report, we may use machine language translation to determine what the nature of that report is or that statement. But we send everything out to be professionally tested.
okay. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Deputy Chief.
Councilor Sanchez.
Thank you, Madam President. Just want to thank you for all that hard work. It's excellent stuff that you're doing. JJ and I are in the field and as sergeants in the Southeast, and glad to hear your return. So I just wanted to say congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions or comments, councilors? Councilor Rogers.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, DC Griego. I'm just sad to see you retire. And we still have some time. And hope want to say to APD leadership, to our administration, please make sure you find it over. It is extremely hard to implement this into a department as just a part of what we do. So something I got to work with you on when I went OEI, because I did this at the hospital to make sure folks had access to their information in a language they can understand. I just want to stress the importance of this work. It builds trust with communities that are oftentimes afraid to call for obvious reasons, especially with what we have happening in our country right now. But I don't hear that from folks recently about getting access to language services. Even in my ride along, seeing the officers knew how to get the interpretation, they knew how to call the phone number, the training that you do with new cadets and officers periodically, not just one and done, is key to make sure it stays on the forefront of the officer's mind and just helps also us just trust the exercise. So I just have to say thank you for you personally championing this, because without you, I don't think we have an amazing work to do this, but the positional power lies with you. And
This is my favorite kind of presentation. I'm not actually doing it. I brought people that know much more about it. So I've got Matt Carter, who's the interim division manager for public art, and Mandolin Sanchez, our outreach coordinator for public art. No relation. So Mandolin's going to come up and share with you.
Good evening.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me today, Madam President, counselors. As Dr. Sanchez explained, my name is Mandolin Sanchez, and I'm going to share with you information about the 2024 Public Art Census of Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. So we're rolling out the report and the data of all the census information that we found. This was a partnership between the City of Albuquerque Public Art Program, or 1.5% for art, as well as the Bernalillo County Percent for Art Program, and Rook, which is a research and design studio who developed the public art census model. So like the United States Census, the public art census is a point-in-time study, specifically of 2024. And it's really meant to capture the art and creativity of a community and the public art experience of the average person in our public spaces. So it includes publicly funded artworks in our public spaces, such as those funded by the city's 1.5% for art program, as well as privately funded works of art. And so to really start the public art census, the local advisory committee was formed, and this included artists, arts administrators, planners, and community participants who really formed what art means for our local community in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. So that included the addition of artwork categories such as hot air balloons when they're in the sky, as well as lowriders when they're in motion, and descansos as roadside memorials. Local canvassers then went out and photographed works in our public right-of-way through the public spaces, and this included photographs as well as documentation of the condition of artworks, the location of works of art, as well as if there's any signature on site, who is the artist who is making art in our public spaces. Rook then took the canvassing data and cross-analyzed this with spatial and civic data, such as crime, housing, accessibility, walkability, transit, and investment if known. The area that was canvassed was all of Bernalillo County, so that included 20,000 linear miles, and as I mentioned, public right-of-way, so not into gated communities or communities that were off limits, as well as not inside of buildings, so no artwork inside of buildings were counted as part of this study. I'll wrap up quickly, but what was revealed was that there's 11,364 works of art throughout Bernalillo County. For a little bit of perspective, the city's 1.5% for art is 342 at the time of this study. So there's so much more happening in our public spaces across the county. And we also found that the work is in excellent to very good condition, so our communities care about art in our public spaces. We also got action items for the city and county's percent for art programs to take into account for future projects. And in conclusion, we are so excited for this census, the data, the report, to really understand and celebrate the public art all across Bernalillo County, but also look at where there's public art deserts, areas where there's less art that people experience in their day-to-day lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Councilors, any questions or comments? Councilor Pena, Vice President Pena?
Thank you, Madam President. I think you alluded to it at the end, right? Just, art in places where there's not, So do you have some kind of plan moving forward and how you're going to address that?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, Madam President, Councilor Pena. So we identified public art deserts where there's less public art or no public art. And so there's various types of public art deserts that were identified as part of the census, but that's our plan for the public art program, is to really think about where are we placing artworks and the community outreach that we're doing there to inform the works that are put in these places, right? We don't want to just put something there. We want to include community input.
Madam President, so if you can share that information with me, or with the rest of the council, I would appreciate it. So, you don't have to do it now, but if you can share that with me.
Yeah,
okay, thank
definitely.
you.
And
Councilor Sanchez?
Thank you, Madam President. You said 11,364 works of art. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's a lot of artwork that we have in our community. And most of the artwork that I've seen out there is really, really spectacular. So thanks for the work. The only question I have is, what's that valued at?
I'm sorry. If you can just hand it to staff, then we'll go ahead and get it in just a little bit. That'd be great. Thank you so much.
What's the value of the artwork, the $11,364?
Madam President, Councilor Sanchez, we don't know the full value of all 11,364 works. We know the value of what the city public art program puts in, what the county public art program puts in, but the artworks that are part of that 11,364 include murals that people have painted on their garage doors, right? It might be like special stones that are painted and displayed. It might be roadrunner sculptures, little libraries. So it's hard to put a value on all of the objects that were created, but that's part of the puzzle, is we're trying to figure that out and
Thank you.
help support that.
Madam President, I have another question that follows along the same lines. I just wanted to see if you can get us an idea of, I'm just curious because I want to know what we've spent on public art as the city and within the last 4 years. And you can give me an idea of how much we've spent there. I would really appreciate that. And then a kind of an itemized idea of what, just a description of each piece of art and what the value is and how much we've spent over the last 4 years. Just curious.
Madam President, Councilor
Thank you.
Sanchez, I don't have the full number in front of me for public art for the last 4 years, but I can tell you for the 342 known works that were part of the public art census that were funded by the city's 1.5%, that was more than $11 million of investment for the city. But that was also over 46 years. And so kind of to give you a range of what was captured in this census data, but I don't have the number after the last 4 years.
If you can,
Thank you.
if you can just send it over the last 4 years once you have it, not this, obviously not this second, but that'd be great just to have it sent to the council. And thank you for sharing that. I'm assuming that's kind of the report of the census. Thank you. Thank you very, very much for the presentation and it's the positivity.
Thank you so much.
We're going to move on to the journal. I move approval of the May 19th journal. There's a second from Madam Vice President. Madam Clerk?
Counselor Baca.
You have to turn it on.
Counselor Champagne.
Yes.
Counselor Peebles.
Yes.
Counselor Grau.
Yes.
Counselor Lewis.
Yes.
Vice President Pena.
Yes.
Counselor Rogers.
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez.
Yes.
President Bassan.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Councilors, moving on to communications and introductions. Changes to the letter of introduction. Counselor Lewis?
Madam President, I move the rules be suspended for the purpose of introducing R-163 and referring it to the Finance and Government Operations Committee. R-163 is adjusting fiscal year 2026 operating appropriations and reserves to enhance the planning department's efforts to increase plan review and permitting efficiency for the betterment of the city of Albuquerque.
There's a motion. Is there a second? There's a second
Second.
from Counselor Baca. Counselors, any discussion? Counselor Feeblecorn?
Thank you, Madam President. Just curious why this is going to Finance and Government Operations and not Land Use Planning and Zoning, since it's about the Planning Department.
Madam President?
Counselor Lewis?
Well, I mean, our staff could answer that, but I think it's just because it has to do with the budget. It's a budget, but I mean, certainly fine if it goes to land use is fine with me too. But I think because it's adjusting it has to do with what we allocated for the budget. Go ahead.
Mr. Morrow?
Certainly. Council President Bassan, I believe that was the rationale, was that because there was an allocation of funds, an appropriation involved was why it was referred to FGO, but also LUPS could also be an appropriate venue for it. I think it's the will of the council.
Well, I think that we'll leave it in FGO for now, and then if there's a reason for it to be referred to LUPS after that, then we can go ahead and move it to LUPS at another point in time. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, Madam Clerk?
Counselor Baca?
Yes.
Counselor Champagne?
Yes.
Counselor Feeblecorn?
Yes.
Counselor Grout?
Yes.
Counselor Lewis?
Yes.
Vice President Pena?
Yes.
Counselor Rogers?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez?
Yes.
President Bassan?
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Counselors, are there any other changes to the letter of introduction? Seeing none, I move approval of the letter of introduction.
Second.
There's a second by Counselor Lewis. Madam Clerk?
Counselor Baca?
Yes.
Counselor Champagne?
Yes.
Counselor Feeblecorn?
Yes.
Counselor Grout?
Yes.
Counselor Lewis?
Yes.
Vice President Pena?
Yes.
Counselor Rogers?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez?
Yes.
President Bassan?
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
There are no reports of committees. Counselors, are there any deferrals or withdrawals at this time? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Changes to the consent agenda. I'll start with Counselor Grout.
Madam President, I pull item A, EC 353 off the consent agenda. EC 353 is the implementation plan for the Voucher Task Force City Council Resolution R24109.
Thank you. And Counselor Rogers.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to pull item I, EC 400 off the consent agenda. EC 400 is the Q3 FY25 ABQ RIDE Quarterly Security Report with APD, ACS, and Metro security data.
Thank you so much. Counselors, any other changes to the consent agenda? For the record, please note the administration has withdrawn item G, EC 25398, Mayor's recommendation of award for Albuquerque International Sunport Rental Car Shuttle Bus Services. And for individuals on tonight's consent agenda who are being appointed to serve on a board or a commission, thank you for your willingness to serve. I move approval of the consent agenda. There's a second from Counselor Lewis. Madam Clerk.
Counselor Baca?
Yes.
Counselor Champagne?
Yes.
Counselor Feeblecorn?
Yes.
Counselor Grout?
Yes.
Counselor Lewis?
Yes.
Vice President Pena?
Yes.
Counselor Rogers?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez?
Yes.
President Bassan?
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Counselor Grout, EC 353.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to be able to comment on this. I want to, I understand that the task force that's coming together, has come together over the past few months, has done some really great work, and there are some good things coming out of it. So I wanted to publicly say thank you. I know there's still much to do, but things are headed in the right direction. This is a big, tall ask, and so it's really nice to see everybody really working so hard on it and wanting to do the best for the people in our community. So I wanted to say thank you, and I do move approval.
There is a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Counselor Feeblecorn and Rogers. Any other questions or comments? Counselor Rogers?
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Counselor Grout. I attended the meeting today to get some updates from the department and was also really pleased at the progress that they've made. And I just have to say for the public, please keep an eye on this. This is something that we're working on to strengthen our programs and to make sure that we know our funding is going to impact folks' lives and actually help them to self-sufficiency. And I think it was really great to see how we're looking at data and how the department is really thinking thoughtfully about what data we should be looking at for impact and making sure we can pull those out. And so I just want to echo that with Councillor Grout that we are headed in a really great direction. And I was really pleased to see the work that's happening. And this is the example of when we empower people to think differently and think outside the box, they really can help us think of some solutions. So I'm really excited to see what comes of this work, of all of us working in the same direction to make this program better. So thank you.
Councilors, any other questions or comments? The motion is for approval of EC 353. Madam Clerk?
Counselor Baca?
Yes.
Counselor Champagne?
Yes.
Counselor Peebles?
Yes.
Counselor Grout?
Yes.
Counselor Lewis?
Yes.
Vice President Pena?
Yes.
Counselor Rogers?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez?
Yes.
President Bassan?
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Councilor Rogers, EC 400.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. I pulled EC 400 consent agenda just to ask a couple of questions about the data and as well as the equity portion of the data as well. So just a couple of questions around data for APD versus ACS versus Metro Security. And I know I'm just have to apologize, I didn't send these ahead of time, just in full disclosure. So I know that you'll probably have to get back to us, but I just noticed in some of the data, some of it's not there. So I just wanted to just talk through a little bit of the process for security and how that's tracked and why we don't have specific data for APD or ACS, specifically on the Route 66 routes.
Madam President, Councillor Rogers, we have Deputy Director from Transit on Zoom that could potentially answer the question. If not, at least take the question to make sure that we can get you a full comprehensive answer. No. Deputy Director Michael Davis.
Good evening, Director.
Good evening, Madam President, councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Again, my name is Mike Davis, Deputy Director for Transit, and we've been tracking this data and present this every 3 months. And the one comment I'll make is we did have an increase in APD information as we're transitioning from Metro Security to APD. And we did have more information on the APD side, but we also had an increase this last quarter, which is January through March, due mainly to fires. And I think the question was, why do we not have as much data for ACS and Metro as we have for APD? Does that sound correct?
Almost. Thank you, Madam President. Basically, in the spreadsheets that we've received, we have calls for APD service by route, ACS calls for service by route, and Metro Security by route. And so for me, tracking these really helps with us seeing what's happening on the buses as far as calls, and to actually be able to combat the things of like free buses mean people are doing more crimes on our buses, right? So this is highly important data for me to be able to see what's happening on our buses, and all of it for APD and ACS says not applicable. And I'm just looking January through March on this, and then for Metro Security, it's also very low. So I guess my point is, can we get some actual data to see what's happening and maybe in a way that we can easily digest it, potentially? Yeah, and Route 66 is the one I'm particularly interested in, and to see nothing there, just like to see some data. And then one more question, if I may. I know when we get to the equity conversation of the study, but there's one question I have that's very important is for the automatic counters. So it's my understanding that fixed route buses do not currently all have automatic people counters on board. So given the data for ridership versus this safety data, how does transit ensure that that's accurate if we don't have counters on every bus?
Yeah, so we do have counters on all our buses at this point in time. It is my understanding. And we do basically a little bit of a sampling of our data through those counters, but we used to have a mix of fare box counters as well as infrared counters on the buses, but we're now entirely infrared counters on the buses.
Thank you, Madam President. And so was that all of the buses at the time of this study had counters? My understanding is that at the time of the equity study, we did not.
Correct. We made this changeover recently, so yeah, we did have a mix of data in the past, and that can, but it is still accurate as far as ridership goes.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Deputy Director.
Councilors, any other questions or comments? Councilor Rogers, did you want to make a motion?
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make a motion to approve.
Receipt be noted.
Receipt be noted for EC 400. Thank you.
There's a motion and a second from Councilor Lewis. Madam Clerk.
Counselor Baca?
Yes.
Counselor Champagne?
Yes.
Counselor Peebles?
Yes.
Counselor Grau?
Yes.
Counselor Lewis?
Yes.
Vice President Pena?
Yes.
Counselor Rogers?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez?
Yes.
President Bassan?
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Moving on to announcements. Councilor Grout.
Thank you, Madam President. There will be an Intergovernmental Legislative Relations Committee meeting on Wednesday, June 4th at 3 p.m. via Zoom video conference.
Councilor Champagne. Microphone.
Yes. Thank you, Madam President. There will be a Finance and Government Operations Committee on Monday, June 9th at 5 p.m. in the Vincent E. Griango Chambers basement level of the Albuquerque Government Center, and this will be a hybrid meeting.
Councilor Feeblecorn.
Madam President, there'll be a Land Use Planning and Zoning Committee meeting on Wednesday, June 11th at 5 p.m. here in the chambers, and this will be a hybrid meeting.
Thank you. Any other announcements, councilors? Moving on to financial instruments, there are none and there are no appeals. We're going to hear general public comment. Members of the public can provide live public comments to the council in person or virtually if they have signed up for public comment per the instructions published on the agenda and on our website Friday. The public comment ground rules are that each participant will have 2 minutes to present this evening. Comments are to be addressed to the councilors only through the council president, and any disruptive conduct will result in removal from the meeting. There's a 2-minute time limit and a bell will ring to indicate your time is up. Mr. Cornelius, if you'll please call the first speaker, and if you're on deck to speak after the current speaker, please start making your way down to the front.
Thank you, Madam President. Our first speaker is Melissa Kaminsky, followed by Sonia Smith.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay? It's kind of weird to talk into this. I'm Kathy Sotelo, Program Director of the Job Connect program with Heading Home, and this is Melissa Kaminsky, Director of Operations. I'm here to request funding consideration for the program, which launched in January 2023 with the city's financial support to fill a critical gap in our city's homelessness response. To date, the program has had 474 individuals enrolled, with 279 who have secured employment. That is a 59% success rate. We're super excited to say that. We've been able to achieve that. Job Connect removes barriers and connects people to opportunity quickly and effectively. We serve individuals experiencing situational homelessness. Situations of homelessness in this case would be caused by external factors such as job loss, eviction, domestic violence, health, or financial crisis. These individuals do not have untreated mental health illnesses or substance use disorders, and therefore often don't qualify for traditional supportive services, but they're motivated, capable, and ready to work. We focus on employability. We meet people where they're at, and we guide them into the workforce, providing services that range from resume development and job coaching to linkage with work readiness programs offered by community partners, including Goodwill and the New Mexico Department of Workforce Solutions. We have also cultivated strong relationships with employers that believe in second chances, such as Adelante, Sodexo, the Hiring Hub, the Isotopes. Job Connects provides up to 3 months post-employment, so we try to track our clients as best as we can. Is it okay to continue?
If you finish just your next sentence, and then we're going to move on.
So for us, employment is the end goal. It's a pathway to stability. Job Connect helps catch people before they spiral, offering structure, accountability, purpose, and support before chronic homelessness, crime, or addiction takes hold.
Thank you.
And we're open to questions.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sonia Smith, followed by Anami Das.
Good evening. I'm going to ask the members, please stand. Good evening, Council President Bassan and distinguished city councilors. I am Sonia Smith, Social Action Chair of the Albuquerque Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. For over a century, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated has boldly championed public service, tackling challenges faced by African Americans and, by extension, all Americans. Through our unwavering commitment, we have shaped programs aligned with our 5-point programmatic thrust: economic development, educational development, international awareness and involvement, physical and mental health, and political awareness and involvement. Our legacy is carried forward by exceptional women, including Marsha Fudge, former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, Keisha Lance Bottoms, former Mayor of Atlanta, the incomparable Aretha Franklin, and celebrated poet Nikki Giovanni. Closer to home are some names you might recognize are city leaders: Sonia Lara, Director of Office of Equity and Inclusion; Rita Moss, Manager, Office of Financial Empowerment; Ziara Kirksey, Policy Analyst for Counselor Nicole Rogers; and yours truly, Sonia Smith. I'm the former Cabinet Secretary for Veteran Services here in our great state of New Mexico. We have been serving our great city with pride for over 50 years and have awarded thousands of dollars in scholarships. In 2021, we implemented a 5-year strategic plan, later updated following a community needs assessment in 2023. We identified opportunities for improving affordable housing, economic stability, health awareness, and public education, key priorities for a thriving Albuquerque. We are servant leaders who believe advocacy must be matched with action. We stand ready to engage, to serve on boards and commissions, and to help shape policies that uplift our residents. A stronger Albuquerque is within reach. Let's build together. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anami Das, followed by Teresa Garcia.
Hi, all. Madam President, happy Pride Month. With AI making the, strides that it does, and like progressing as rapidly as it is, I've noticed a pattern in like some AI media that's created where it seems like it's being trained using police body cam footage or like surveillance systems like the RTCC. And I know that the city of Denver is very careful about where their police data and police footage goes, and like where like license plate reader information and like data goes. I worry that the police department might be training artificial intelligence in like kind of a roundabout manner, but I worry that when robocops do eventually become a thing, that they would have been trained by APD. And I think APD can use some improvement before getting that kind of job. And I think that we should look into like what it is the city of Denver is doing to make sure that data is used responsibly and try to emulate that in some way. Thanks, y'all.
Teresa Garcia, followed by Dr. Lisa Christofferson.
Good evening, Council President, Vice President, and Council members. My name is Teresa Garcia, and I stand before you deeply concerned about the upcoming sudden closure of Job Corps. My cousin's daughter is one of 200 students who were given notice only last Thursday that they must leave by next week. These young people, many from disadvantaged backgrounds, have been working hard to change their lives, and now they're being told to pack up with nowhere to go. Some may be lucky enough to be picked up by family, but many will face homelessness. They come to Job Corps seeking opportunity, education, stability. What message are we sending when we allow them to be pushed out onto the streets by an executive decision made without warning or support or even resources? Who does Job Corps serve, might you ask? Low-income young people ages 16 to 24, majority Black, Latino, Indigenous, and youth of color. Foster youth, students experiencing homelessness, and survivors of violence. Youth without a high school diploma seeking a second chance. We owe it to the youth to stand up for them. And I urge you, please advocate on their behalf and give them the support that they desperately are needing. Help us ensure that they're not forgotten. They deserve better from us than to be thrown out on the streets, and I seek your support. Thank you so much for your time.
Dr. Lisa Christofferson, followed by David McKibben.
It is on your shoulders that I stand. President Bassan, City Councilors, my name is Lisa Christofferson. I live in City District 3. I stand before you with a few heavy burdens. I echo what my friend Teresa is saying, but before that, the National Guard and militarizing of our civilian spaces, the drone surveillance without warrants, spying on citizens. What is that messaging that we are giving to our citizens justifying the militarization? And who does that actually benefit when we give that narrative of our city? I'm a little offended that we keep labeling our city, and I live in the South Valley, right, kind of on the poor side of West Side. I'm very excited. 20 years I have lived in this community, and we have wonderful neighbors. So for people to insinuate that somehow because of where we live and the color of our skin that's predominantly in our neighborhood, that somehow we're like this crime magnet, I reject that opinion. But I do want to ask, 1.5 million that's used every 2 months, we have Job Corps kids that could use that funding. There's 200 high school students with Job Corps, and they're set to lose unemployment and housing in 1 week. I thought it was 3, but it's in 1 week. We're going to have about 100 kids out on our streets. What are we going to do? We know kind of in advance. The federal cuts, guys, we need some help. I will do whatever we can do to get these people, these kids, some housing and job. So CYFD is years away from being a healthy, functioning resource here in New Mexico. And so we've been pleading if we could somehow, we need foster homes, we need foster parents, we need wraparound services. There's got to be something we can do within Albuquerque. I would ask the mayor, but and Mayor, your post on Facebook about the immigration status of Albuquerque, that I agree with, but this National Guard, that's on you, and we need a new mayor.
David McKibben, followed by Janet Sayers. Janet Sayers, followed by Denise Muniz Archibek.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the council. Thank you for your time tonight. I wanted to thank you first for your support in the operating budget process of increasing the library's budget, restoring the $50,000, and then also adding $200,000 for technology, which is going to help us with that 400 plus public computers. And if you were not made aware, Bernalillo County increased their yearly contribution with another $250,000 also for technology. So that was number one. And number two, last week I had an opportunity to visit 3 of the libraries in District 6. International Library, the day before, I learned that the air conditioner shut it down, and it will be shut down for several more weeks. But I was able to also visit Ernie Pyle, San Pedro. Last Saturday, I was in District 7 at Erna Ferguson, where dozens of happy children and families enjoyed the kickoff to Color Our World, the summer reading program at the public library, all 19 branches. And we had the lion dance and a piñata party, and that was most enjoyable. On May 17th, I was at the downtown branch, and I just wanted to mention that if people are interested in their family genealogy, we have an amazing resource there, the entire second floor, and volunteers that come twice a week to help people use all those databases for 10 seconds. Okay. And then also Dave Minicucci gave us a fabulous program about the history of Italians in Albuquerque, and that was great. And then yesterday we had about 150 people at the Albuquerque Museum getting information about the Special Collections Library. So again, thank you very much, and color our world this summer. Wahoo.
Denise Muniz Archibek, followed by Ilse Beal.
Before I begin, I would like to thank Madam President and the council members for allowing me to speak today. My name is Denise Muniz Archibek. I am a MCO driver for CABQ. I'm sorry, I'm nervous. CABQ Transit. I just completed my first year with a city transit yesterday. I'm speaking today on behalf of the transit, MCO, and Sunvan drivers. I want to address the escalating safety and operational challenges faced by our city's transit drivers due to severe passenger misconduct. These issues are undermining drivers' well-being and reliability of our public transportation system. Our key problems: aggressive and abusive behavior, drivers endure verbal abuse, threats, and frequent physical assaults. I'm one of them. Also including throwing rocks at our buses as we're going by, holding up Sunvans hostage in the International District area, often related to when they pull the stop request, they pull it way late, so we have to go to the next one. They get mad at us for doing that. Whereas for physical assaults, again, I'm standing here as a victim of one because the driver fell asleep and it was my fault that I didn't wake him up for his stop. Unsanitary conditions, and this might get a little bit graphic, so I apologize. I'm not going to be real graphic, but just I'm going to use professional words. Buses are routinely misused for personal spaces, resulting in extensive messes, discarded drugs, paraphernalia, including fentanyl, the smoke exposure. They blow out the smoke at the door. We get it. Passengers sitting at the bus stops get it. Do I go? Keep going? Okay.
Yes, Councilor Sanchez has requested that you continue.
Okay. Bodily fluids, urine, feces, vomit, blood, semen, alcoholic beverage, empty containers on the buses. Drug activity on transit. We are the transportation for the drug here in the city of Albuquerque. We are transporting these people to do their business. Drug distribution, they're selling their drugs on our buses, you know, and we can't do nothing about it. And it's all because we have no present security on our buses. They just do whatever they want to do because we don't have security. The free ride abuse. The perception of free rides is an entitlement, leads to prolonged trips, scheduling disruptions, and challenges with passengers requiring care beyond transit scope. We strongly request your immediate attention to implement a greater security for law enforcement presence on all our transit routes, stricter enforcement such as clear policies and enforcement mechanisms for passenger conduct, measures to hold individuals accountable for misconduct and insults, policy review for a reevaluation on the free ride policy to prevent this type of abuse. Addressing these concerns crucially for driver safety and for the long-term and viability of our city's transit system, we are ready to assist in finding a solution. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President.
Counselor Sanchez?
Thank you. I just wanted a quick, let me see where I can find it here. Don't trust beyond trust. Okay, you said there's no security present whatsoever?
I'm not going to say whatsoever, sir. And I go on sometimes at 5 o'clock in the morning and I do the art and I do 66. On Wednesdays and Thursdays, I do the art. On Fridays, I do the 66. I have no security. No security.
And what does care beyond transit scope mean?
It's just, I want it to, I don't even know how to explain that. I'm so nervous. It's just the scope that we have. We want to be, you know, we want to be fair to them, but they have to be fair to us. It's just our scope, we just want them to treat us right. We're humans. We're doing a service for them.
Yes.
You know, I don't know how to explain it.
And Ms. Archibek, I just had another question about how are these folks holding the buses hostage?
One of the Sunvan buses pulled into, I don't know if it was Dallas or Arizona or somewhere in that area right there. And because she would not allow them on the bus because one, they're either high on fentanyl or drunk, or they have feces on them, or they've urinated on themselves. We don't allow them on the buses when they're like that. And so they barricaded her, and she sat in her bus trying, you know, calling for calls for service, trying to get transit police and APD there to help her.
Wow, okay. So the last question that I have is are the bus drivers, if you're in a bus and somebody walks in and exhales, are you reporting that? And how is the transit department handling that?
It goes reported. Everything is reported. My assault, I called for help. I never made a police report, and that was not by my choice because APD was never dispatched. My supervisor took reports. The reports are being in-house. They're just, our supervisors are making a report and document it that way.
Okay, so that could still be considered an assault, basically, if they're exhaling right in your face.
I had a passenger waiting at the bus stop, an elderly man in a walker, and he's standing there and he's doing this. I said, is there a problem? He says, it's fentanyl. They blew the smoke. We had to call rescue for him.
And that was just an innocent citizen.
Secondhand smoke, yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for answering those questions.
My apologies. Counselor Feeblecorn?
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for being here, Ms. Archibald. I might have missed at the beginning. You said you were here representing the bus drivers. Are you with the union?
No, I'm a bus driver. Well, I am with the union. I am a union member.
But when you say you're representing bus drivers?
Yes.
Are you representing a group of bus drivers? Have you had some sort of meeting with the union? I'm just trying to understand.
No, I came because nothing is being done.
Okay.
I was not being heard.
Thank you for the clarification.
Counselor Rogers?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to say thank you for being here. I know how scary it
is very
is to come and speak on behalf of what you're experiencing as an employee. So I just want to say that, and I have to name that. It's extremely hard to stand up for fear of lots of things.
Yes.
But I thank you for doing that. I think this is exactly why I brought up the question on the security report. I don't want a he said, she said issue. Like, that's right now what we have in the city of Albuquerque. We have this,
Yes.
right? And I think, having some experience with a driver that I referred to work at the city, having some experiences that you talk about, but I think that's why we have to have the data, because
Absolutely.
we don't want to we have to be careful of our perceptions, right, of what you're dealing with and also what the driver of that is, right?
Absolutely.
Whether it's free fares or not. I think fentanyl has nothing to do with free fares, right? Whether people are using it for transportation to go get it or sell it, or that's a different conversation that free fares isn't going to fix, right? We know nationally that the most dangerous part for a driver is during fare collection. I think that was the impetus for this change, was nationally, that's really what puts drivers at risk in the highest rates, is collecting fares and disputes over fares. So I feel like this is something I've asked the administration about, especially in my district, not seeing a presence of transit police. And the response that I got back is we had a lot of turnover in transit police recently that has caused that.
Absolutely.
But I think the other thing is I've talked directly to the administration about violence interrupters on our buses, things like that actually have really good outcomes in other cities, so that you as a bus driver can focus on driving the bus safely and not all the other social issues that you're having to handle on the bus. And so I think we need to have those conversations with our friends. I know ACS can't save the world, but this is part of the model of community safety in other cities, like Cahoots and other places, where they have violence interrupters on the bus who help that. I know Transit's helping with the ambassador program that they have now that's just launching, that will put people on the bus to help with some of those things for you. So I'm interested in talking with you offline about solutions that you think would help.
Absolutely.
Because what I know of us is that we want the solutions in addition to hearing what you're dealing with. And I'm sure the motor coach operators have a lot of solutions that we could work on together. So thank you for being here. I know it's hard to do that.
Thank you very much.
Counselor Sanchez?
Thank you. I just want to make sure that you get with our office as well. I just sometimes really worry about any type of retaliation sometimes, and I just want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So stay in contact with me, please.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Cornelius?
Thank you, Madam President. Up next, we have Ilsa Beal, followed by Let's Otvo.
Good evening. I shared with you a video that I had received from a community member and also subsequently posted on Facebook of a solid waste worker placing a guitar he had found while dismantling an unattended tent in the cab of his dump truck on 26th of March. Maria Wolf approached me and explained that the city has started selecting valuable items to place in safekeeping for the owners to collect. I inquired of the mayor's office why this amendment to the displacement policy had not gone the normal route of notice, public input, publication of final policy. Markella Clinton reported that all the owner of the guitar needs to do is call 311, provide a description of the item, and solid waste will follow up directly to verify ownership and coordinate a pickup. Seeing as telephones are a rare commodity on the street at the moment, this is unrealistic. Maria Wolf assured Markella that she had been informed the same day the guitar had been taken and has been working closely with solid waste to develop a more consistent and accountable process for handling unattended personal belongings. When I brought my concerns to the May MRAC meeting, David Lay said that his subcommittee started working on a new displacement policy at their April meeting. How's the owner supposed to know that the guitar has been taken into storage? What has the city done to try and make contact with the owner? How long will solid waste keep the guitar in storage? Who determines which possessions are valuable and worth putting into storage? I can't understand how this can be implemented without a properly thought through SOP. Perhaps all the folks on the street should phone 311 and describe the valuables they had lost during displacements, just in case those items also made it into safekeeping at the storage facility. Thank you.
Let's Advo, followed by Brick Jonesy.
Madam President, council members, you know, I struggled today to try to figure out exactly how I could impress upon you folks just how important it is that people that have the ability to fight themselves for themselves, and when I say fight, I don't mean as in a physical sense. I mean as in a legal sense. You folks are going to find out very soon that when you are having an onslaught of federal civil lawsuits filed against your city, you're no longer going to be able to say that it's just a cost of doing business. I don't know how much more I can impress upon you. I don't want to be the devil's advocate and say that if what I've uncovered is true, and I've made the councilors aware of it for over 3 months, that including the chief of police in Albuquerque is not signing their oaths of office as prescribed by not only New Mexico state statute, but by federal code. What that means is that any action taken by these police that haven't signed their oath can be considered null and void if the person wishes to fight it in that avenue. Now, I don't really looking forward to having a lot of, let's say, career criminals that are truly committing crimes to be released for something like that, similar to what happened with the DUI scandal. But it's a reality, and I'm not going to just sugarcoat it. I need to tell you about it. So if I tell you about it 3 months ago, thank you.
Brick Jonesy, followed by Tad Nieminski.
Council President, councilors, yeah, deaf ears. That oath of office, man. I would imagine you guys probably signed an oath of office, right? Yeah. You were an elected official, you would. Appointed officials are actually required to sign it as well. Chief Medina says, oh, he doesn't have to if I read the statute. Yeah, I read the statute. If it finds its way into the court, it's going to be called unconstitutional, if that's the case, if that's what he's going by. And besides, what conscientious scruples would anybody in an elected position or an appointed position of office have against loyalty to the Constitution of the United States, upholding and defending our rights? What conscientious scruples would any individual in any one of those positions have against the Constitution of New Mexico and upholding and defending those rights? Yeah, I read it. I've read it. I know it. It's unconstitutional on its face. Can't say you have you can't say you have conscientious scruples and then walk around with a firearm ready to take somebody's life, and you have a badge on claiming you have the legal and lawful duty. That's not conscientious scruples. That's a gang. That's a gang, a blue line gang. If you want to be part of that, it ain't going to work out well for you, because you got Americans out here who are willing to defend our rights.
Tad Nomitsky, followed by Thomas Abeta.
Thank you. My name is Ted Niemiecki. Well, speak about cops. Every cop, good cop, have the things like criminal. But not all cops are bad cops. What's happened to me after the meeting last time? This middle-aged cop, when he pulled me over for driving after 6 months chaotic, losing turn, he showed compassion. Instead citing writing tickets and so on, he said, I give you only warning. I know you dead from the council meeting. Well, that means something. I'm doing something for somebody. Somebody appreciate. That's a verbal warning. So now, look at here. Consent agenda. A, B, C, I, J, S, F, D. Hiding from the public. Moving that on our agenda. Millions and millions of money being shifted to not profit and so on. You are such crooked doing that. Dishonest. I'm sorry. You're gonna go to big hole dance. I'm getting old in this information and I'm not gonna keep up with you all. And time coming, you can beep it now. I don't need you 3 seconds.
Thomas Abeta, followed by Alexandra Paisano on Zoom.
I just wanted to do something that people don't really come here and do for you guys ever, which is just say thank you. A couple days ago, my landlord brought over an AC unit, installed it for me. You guys passed that, and I got to sleep at a cool 69 degrees recently, for the first time in a while. So thank you guys. You guys passed something that helped me out, and I'm pretty thankful for that. I asked a question a while back then that I still don't have an answer to, so I just wanted to ask again. Council President, I don't know among you guys who owns property, who doesn't, like apartments and housing. If I wanted to find that out, how would I go about that?
If you send me an email, I'll go ahead and answer that, but this is not a Q&A for us right now.
Gotcha. No, fair enough. I did get a list. Unfortunately, it's really hard information to find, and I can only imagine how hard it is for other people. So from what I understand, I can't even verify it, so that's why I wanted to even ask you guys. As far as I'm aware, I think Brooke Bassan, Joaquin Baca, Dan Lewis, Clarissa Pena, and Renee Grout all own either apartments or housing of some kind. Would any of you be willing to be transparent and open about that?
This is not a Q&A, sir. Thank you.
We got one yes. Thank you.
Alexandra Paisano, followed by Vivek Julati.
Hello, my name is Alexandra Paisano, and I am the Coordinated Entry Director for the Mexico Coalition to End Homelessness. I'm here to urge you to support the veto of the proposed cut to the 768 HELP Homelessness Resource Line. This helpline is not just a phone number, it's a critical resource and access point for thousands of people in crisis every single month. It connects individuals and families to essential resources including mental health, shelter, healthcare, and housing. This helpline is critical not only to Albuquerque residents, but also to those in small and rural areas where services are scarce or non-existent. Cutting this service would disrupt the entire local and statewide response system and jeopardize the city's compliance with HUD's Continuum of Care funding requirements. Since its launch nearly 4 years ago, we have worked to streamline information on accessing services, reduce duplication of efforts across providers, and ease the burden on individuals already in crisis. This decision isn't just a budget cut, it's a systemic setback we can't afford. Please preserve the funding for 768 HELP. Thank you.
Gulati, followed by Annalie Para.
Madam President and the council members, thank you for allowing me to speak here. My name is Vivek Gulati. I'm the state coordinator for a nonprofit called the Art of Living Foundation, and I'm also the New Mexico representative for the office of Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar. Gurudev is a world-renowned humanitarian and spiritual leader, a true ambassador of peace. His programs have impacted approximately 500 million people in over 180 countries. Some specific programs that he has designed include the prison program, which has proven to reduce recidivism and has impacted over 800,000 inmates worldwide. The Project Welcome Home Troops program that helps our veterans deal with PTSD. The Sky Schools program that has helped at-risk youth and has been shown to reduce behavioral incidents in schools and improved learning outcomes for at-risk youth. He recently, a few years ago, helped resolve a 52-year-old civil war between the FARC rebels and the Colombian government. In 2023, he brought together 1.1 million people at the National Mall in DC for the 4th edition of the World Culture Festival. I'm here to share the news that Gurudev will be visiting Albuquerque on July 7th, his first visit in almost 30 years to this city. There will be an event titled Journey Within, which will be open to the public, and the details are on his website, srishri.org. So from heads of state to prison inmates, from corporate leaders to rural farmers, people from all walks of life around the world seek Gurudev's counsel. It is my sincere wish to bring together key people in the community, political leaders, government leaders, business leaders, religious leaders, nonprofit leaders, together to meet with Gurudev in a private, intimate setting so that we can learn from his experience and come up with local solutions that have a lasting impact for some of our most pressing issues. I'm seeking the council's guidance in this endeavor.
Annalie Para, can you accept promotion to panelist, please? Go ahead, Annalie Para, followed by Rudolph Serrano. Annalie, please proceed. There may be some technical difficulties there, Madam President. We'll go to Rudolph Serrano. Rudolph, please proceed.
Okay. President Bazan, members of the council, good to see you. I am being present there. Last time I was there, I was thinking of running for mayor, but my family asked me not to. Like, it's really dirty how we get into these political wars right now. And I don't have the money to back up any oligarch that will go against, you know. And that's something interesting to think about oligarchs, because we are starting to make an oligarch. If we gave almost $250 million to make that hotel in Old Town, after we already give 85 million, we're gonna just make a new oligarch, an oligarch that doesn't like people that are conservatives, and I see that as a no-no. It's not. I didn't see it on the table, but I saw it in the news, and I just clicked my heart to come back and say, we cannot do that. We have to stop doing that. We already gave enough in that project. And good luck for the mayor's the wannabes. I don't know who's gonna be. I hope somebody wins in this council. You know, it's Councilor Luis. You know, you get my blessing. You know, you're somebody everybody knows, and I will love to see a mayor that comes from this council. And I would love to see you doing something against what is happening in the city would be, hospitable to people that believe in castration of children. We're actually celebrating child castration this month. We're going to celebrate on the street. I am going to protest, of course. The LGBT community agenda is against our children, and I will stand for the rest of my life against it. And I want to see one of the mayor's candidates to come up open, just like they come up open to molest our children, come up open and go against these guys. And that's important. That's important for us to do. The other thing was I got a new companion, Diva. I want to give APD consolations for losing their dog. Our dogs are like our best friends. And I offer, if they want to clone it, there's something we can do. That's something that I will give eternal life to our dogs. Thank you.
We'll go to Don Green Vigil and then try back with Annalee Parra. Please go ahead, Don Green Vigil.
Good evening, council members. My name is Dawn Green Vigil. I am by title the Social Services Care Coordinator with Albuquerque Community Safety's Violence Intervention Program. I have been here a little bit over 3 years, longer than anyone else in the department. I am here today to ask for your assistance with some serious concerns regarding discrimination, retaliation, and the toxic work environment that I have been subjected to. Prior to late March of this year, I was told that I was going to be getting pulled out of the field, doing peer support work to go into my actual role as social services care coordinator. Something I've never been able to do in the time I've been, because I've gone through 7 different leaders in my time with the Violence Intervention Program. And after filing my complaint against a colleague on what I would consider to be unethical behavior towards me, when I returned, I was told that my assignment was to be primarily peer support, and I was no longer going to be doing the duties as the social services care coordinator. And since I've returned, I have only been put on the schedule 1 day a week for 5 hours every Monday, and the rest of the week I am only on standby, where my male colleagues continue to receive daily field assignments and are fully utilized. I am the only woman in the violence intervention program. Being stripped of my responsibilities and excluded from the work that I was hired to do feels like clear retaliation. While sitting in the office the majority of the week, I am also exposed to ongoing and daily inappropriate, unethical conversations, topics that no employee should be forced to hear in any workplace. I have reported several of these issues over the years to leadership and to HR, but my concerns have not appeared to be taken seriously. Things have just changed for the worse. This is unacceptable, and I am here today because I refuse to stay silent. I am asking this council to please investigate these matters, to hold leadership accountable, and to help ensure that all city employees, regardless of gender, are treated with fairness, dignity, and respect. I also want to include that I have several audios to give you an understanding of the toxic and unethical and as recent as this morning.
Thank you, Ms. Green Vigil.
Threats of violence.
Your time is up, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go try Annalee Parra one more time. Annalee, can you unmute? Can you say a few words? We're unable to hear you, Annalee. I apologize. There are some technical difficulties, Madam President. That does conclude general public comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Cornelius. Following general public comment is approvals, and there are none. Moving on to final actions. Councilor Lewis, 078.
Thank you, Madam President. 078 is adopting a new Part 3 in Chapter 9, Article 11 of the revised ordinances of Albuquerque, 1994, to be known as the Intoxicating Hemp Products Ordinance. I move to pass.
Second.
There's a motion and a second by Counselor Baca. Counselor Lewis to open.
And Madam President, thank you. So this bill has been in committee and has had several amendments, mostly technical amendments to it, but it's specifically regarding intoxicating hemp and a product that you watched Larry Barker a few months ago and did a really good job of explaining the product that's sold in retail convenience stores around Albuquerque. It's really marketed for children. It's put in packages. It's a synthetic product that oftentimes has a THC level that you'd find in other marijuana products that are regulated by the state. So this is a product that's not regulated by the state, and it's really poison that's being sold to children. And so at some point, if they wanted to regulate this, or if the state wanted to regulate it, it would fall under those categories. But right now, that's not the case, and it just allows for a loophole to be able to sell a product that's specifically targeted towards children. It's really just a poison. And so, this came from the industries, from constituents and people that said that we need to look at this and look at a way that we can be able to really address specifically the problem, and certainly without interfering with other parts of the industry in that regard. So Mr. Morrow has certainly can fill in some of the details, as well as APD is here and spent some time with the chief, talking about enforcement, and I think they'd be willing to answer any questions that you all might have regarding enforcement, as well as administration too. I think would respond to some of those questions as well. So thank you, Madam President.
Counselor Lewis, we're going to go to public comment on the bill, and then we will go to council discussion. Mr. Cornelius?
Thank you, Madam President. First up is Anami Das, followed by Jeff Apodaca.
Hi, y'all. Madam President. So I was at the FGO meeting where this was discussed, but I didn't show up in time to make a public comment. And I figured that I might be able to help with some of the confusion that came up during that meeting. But I should also mention that I had nothing to do with the drafting of this legislation. The thing about drug policy is that it can be poorly done where it's the, essentially, like, if you try to clamp down on drugs in a certain way, it's the same as trying to grab a fistful of water. It's just gonna go everywhere and you're not gonna actually do anything, and it's gonna make a bigger mess. One example of that is how we ended up with a fentanyl crisis instead of the heroin crisis that we had before. And a lighter example of that, which is more analogous to what's being addressed in this bill, is so like 10 years ago, there was like a popular movement of research chemicals being used as recreational drugs. For instance, at the time, I was looking for magic mushrooms one day, which is a drug that the effects are pretty well documented, and for the most part, it can be done safely. I couldn't find magic mushrooms because I lived in Dallas, and I was a child. So I found something called 4-ACO-DMT, which is very strong DMT that lasts for about 4 hours. This legislation would prevent research chemicals from being the only option that's an alternative to someone who is looking to use drugs. Thank you so much for your time.
Jeff Apodaca, followed by Alan Goncharov.
Good afternoon, City Council, or good evening, Council Basan and the Council. First of all, I want to thank you guys for letting me be here tonight, and I apologize for all the text messages and phone calls you got today from me, because I was asked to speak actually last night on Ordinance 025. I'm actually a big believer, I'm in the hemp business, but I believe the hemp and cannabis business can work together for the greater good of the consumer. This issue was addressed earlier this year at the state legislature by both parties during the legislative session. And the consensus was, let's put a pause on it and let Congress update the federal farm bill from 2018. And that bill is expected to address these concerns today, specifically with synthetics on Delta 8 and Delta 9. I've had direct conversations with Ben Ray Lujan to talk about that, as he sits on the Ag Committee. So we should see some direction from the federal government come fourth quarter. Back in 2019, I, and along with other hemp people, we worked closely with the Department of Environment to create these state regulations and guidelines from the Farm Bill that we've talked about. I think we all agree that synthetics is part of the products, but we all agree that it should be regulated, it should be restricted to 21 and over, and it should be kept out of the hands of teens. But today, this hemp product is sold in New Mexico and is all certified by third-party tests already. My concern is the way the bill is written is you're criminalizing the consumers of New Mexico, specifically people like my mother, who many of you know, who use this product for pain and stuff like that. So I'd ask you to kind of put a hold on this, because you're also passing on $2 to $4 million in revenue and also creating a black market. So I'd ask you to basically take this ordinance into consideration and maybe defer it and put it on hold until we see what happens at the federal level, because we're already working with state legislators right now to basically finalize this and create state regulations based on this in next session. Thank you very much. If there's any questions.
Thank you.
Alan Goncharov, followed by Barbara Goncharov.
Madam President, members of the council, this bill attempts to solve a problem that doesn't exist. A similar bill was rejected in the State House just months ago. Meanwhile, the 2018 Farm Bill, the law governing the nationwide, is being rewritten and is expected in October. It makes sense for us to wait till the new bill comes through and we have new regulations from the state, rather than passing a bill that will become obsolete in 9 months. If hemp products were truly harming children, where are all the parents telling us these stories? I think that we're a highly regulated business, and we're getting the poor rap of that there's no regulations. We have both federal regulations from the Hemp Act, and we also have regulations from the state that we have to follow. It's not unregulated. Everything gets third-party tested. Everything is, there's never, we are a manufacturer. We've never had a complaint. We've never had an illness. And they're making up this story, and it's all coming from the marijuana industry that is trying to stop hemp from going forward. And also just many local small shops are small family-owned businesses. Combine this bill with, which takes away products, I gotta hold this up, I apologize, with rising tariffs from China, where 90% of the products come from, and many will not survive, causing vacancies, unemployment, and loss of revenue. If a tourist flies in to Albuquerque with CBN gummies in their luggage for sleep, could now face a $500 fine and 90 days in jail if their baggage is searched. This policy is a deterrent to business and tourism. For the sake of patients, businesses, and common sense, I urge you to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Barbara Goncharov, followed by Jeffrey Goncharov.
Thank you. Madam President and members of the council, I am part of a licensed regulated hemp manufacturing company here in Albuquerque. I'm here today to speak against this bill to ban hemp-derived products. Public safety is not what's driving this bill, it's profit. This bill is being pushed by multi-million-dollar cannabis corporations who want to eliminate the competition. It's built on fear and misinformation, not science. Our company works hard to produce safe, high-quality hemp products. We follow strict regulations, perform regular lab testing, and comply fully with state guidelines. We are part of a growing industry that creates jobs and contributes to the local economy. Banning these products would force small businesses to shut down. It would impact not just us, but all the suppliers, distributors, and employees connected to this industry. That's a lot of people out of work in a city that already faces economic challenges. Banning hemp-derived products won't make demand disappear. It will simply drive it underground or to neighboring cities. Meanwhile, our police force is already stretched thin. Is enforcing a hemp ban really where our resources should go? Not everyone wants or can tolerate high-potency cannabis. Hemp-derived products offer a gentler alternative, and consumers deserve that choice. Instead of banning, let's work together to create strong regulations with clear standards for safety, labeling, and testing. There's room for both cannabis and hemp to coexist. This bill picks winners and losers, and it's the big cannabis corporations who win. Let's protect small businesses, preserve jobs, and respect the right of individual choice. Please vote no on this bill and keep the hemp industry alive in Albuquerque. Thank you for your time.
Jeffrey Goncharov, followed by Ian Shaw.
Good evening, Madam President and council members. Banning hemp-derived products like Delta-8 and THCA in Albuquerque will not eliminate access. It will simply drive customers to city limits or unregulated out-of-state online sellers that contribute nothing to our local economy. Meanwhile, businesses like mine, who follow all state and federal hemp laws, source only the safest hemp-derived extracts from GMP-certified labs that cost millions of dollars to engineer and operate, who we test every single product is ISO certified and is tested in an ISO certified lab, and we pay taxes. And we are being targeted as if we are the problem. This ordinance offers no path for compliant, responsible businesses or manufacturers like us, only penalties. This is prohibition disguised as regulation, and it will not work. History shows us that this only leads to shuttered storefronts, job losses, and thriving black market that answers to no one. Many of our customers are veterans, seniors, and parents of children with disabilities who rely on these products because they cannot tolerate traditional cannabis. This ordinance will leave them behind. If the goal is public safety, then regulate us. Just because something is semi-synthetic or synthetic doesn't mean it's dangerous. Please don't destroy a federally legal industry with one vote, especially while allowing cannabis, which isn't even federally legal. Albuquerque has a choice. You can lead with smart policy or be remembered for killing a small business industry. Please vote no. Thank you so much.
Ian Shaw, followed by Kim Rael.
Madam President and members of the council, does this ordinance prevent out-of-state manufacturers from shipping their products into Albuquerque where they're still sold in gas stations, smoke shops, and convenience stores? No, it does not. Does it keep these products out of the hands of minors, whether in stores or online? Again, no. Can the city realistically enforce this ordinance with the limited number of agents available and the thousands of businesses that would be affected? Absolutely not. All this ordinance really does is force local manufacturers and businesses operating in compliance with existing regulations to shut down or move out of Albuquerque. They'll go to states with fewer regulations, and Albuquerque will lose good jobs, tax revenue, and any chance to regulate production locally. This ordinance does not improve labeling. It doesn't mandate safer packaging. It doesn't protect our kids in any meaningful way. It only hurts responsible New Mexico businesses while doing nothing to stop the flow of these products into our city. Thank you.
Kim Rael, followed by Charles Villanueva.
President Bassan, Vice President Pena, councilors, thank you. My name is Kim Rael, and I am a longtime member of the local business community and a serial entrepreneur. I am CEO of SRE Wellness, which is a licensed hemp manufacturer in the city of Albuquerque. And through our own internal operations and our manufacturing partners, we support about 50 manufacturing jobs in Albuquerque. I do support this ordinance as reported out of committee, and I agree with the findings in the ordinance as proposed. It is a complicated situation because the 2018 Farm Bill did not intend, former congressional staffer, I don't believe after studying this, the congressional intent was ever to unleash high-dose intoxicating products into the channels that they're now in, which this ordinance seeks to restrict in the city of Albuquerque. So I wanted to just voice my support as a member of the hemp industry here in Albuquerque, and happy to provide any technical explanation. But thank you for your time. I want to keep it short and sweet.
Charles Villanueva, followed by Tad Niemitzki.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the council. I'm also part of the hemp and cannabis industries here in Albuquerque. I'm a chemist by training, so I know a lot about these types of chemicals. I'm also in support of this ordinance as written. I think that having undefined chemicals in the marketplace with unknown safety profiles is a risk to not just children, but everyone in general. So yeah, keep it short and sweet. Also, I support this bill. So thank you.
Tad Niemitzki, followed by Sean Gomez on Zoom.
Excuse me, just a second. I have to change the equipment. Okay, I can hear better now. For one thing, I'm totally 100% agree what they're doing. And, well, I don't believe it in marijuana. I don't believe it. Speaking about having a headache, I had lived with chronic headache for many years. And about 15 years ago, I found it no drugs, medication did help me. What helped me? Oh, well, it just happened to Sunday morning on the radio driving and listened a religious program and then mentioning about some vitamins. So I said, well, why don't I try it? And sure enough, now if I'm tired, I take vitamin C, vitamin 12, and so on. And those things give me energy, my blood circulation, and so on. And no more headache. I never had headache in the last 10, 15 years. So anyway, I'm looking at this is big business. We all know Darren White. He's now Tsar of marijuana, running for the office to quit city council as directed by Mayor Barry. So anyway, I walk to the stores advertise. All kind of paraphernalia. That's no such thing, marijuana. They selling all kind of drug paraphernalia. Thank you. I suggest you just go to some of the stores. You get idea.
Sean Gomez, followed by Rudolph Serrano.
Madam President and councilors, thank you for taking this. I'm an industry professional in hemp cannabis for the last 6 years. There's a lot of depth to the regulations surrounding both hemp and cannabis, and I appreciate those being heard and expressed. I think this is a good step in the right direction to allow regulation and create the conversation. So I appreciate your time, and I do support the bill. Thank you.
Rudolph Serrano. You're muted, Rudolph.
members of the council, by President Bazan. Again, I was #1 on this 40 years ago. And, you know, the THC levels in the 40 years ago were almost like hemp today. And I passed it, you know, and you guys are making $1 billion. But sometimes you have to change your minds, you know, and there's new research, there's a new science called epigenetics. This is pretty much above genetics or what's going on outside genetics. And what the new science is telling us is that the products derived by hemp and derived by marijuana are directly, almost like taking an aspirin for pain, related to schizophrenia. So I'm not gonna only go and support this bill, but support for anything and bringing the federal government against anybody that is selling marijuana so we can stop the schizophrenia on the streets. We have 2 candidates for mayors that make their living by creating schizophrenia on the streets with marijuana and hemp. So we have to take serious these actions. We got to go with everything against it. And I'm going to go for support 100%. And I'm sorry for passing it in the past, but we got to go with the times and and we got to believe in the new science. So I'm supporting Councilor Lewis. Go for it, and let's go against marijuana too. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes comment. Thank you.
Councilors, just real quick, we're going to go back just a tiny bit. I know that this is a little bit off topic, but I believe, is Annalee Para available now? Or not yet? Okay. Councilors, we're back on 078. Councilor Lewis to start, and then questions or comments?
Madam President, this bill, just some clarifying statements. The bill, again, it's retail. It does not apply to the use or possession of the product. In the state legislature, we mentioned about the state legislature and the Farm Bill, and which is one of the reasons why we were very specific in the bill regarding synthetics or semi-synthetic product. But also, this is, I mean, if you're a hemp manufacturer and your business model is to create a product that's a high-dose intoxicating hemp that's just as intoxicating or more, or even dangerous than cannabis. If your business model is to market that high-dose hemp and put it into, get it in the hands of retail, convenience stores, gas stations, and sell it to children and package it in a way where children could buy it, then that's exactly what this bill has to do with. And I think it has very little to do with, if anything at all, in fact, it doesn't have anything to do with the manufacturing even of this product whatsoever. So it's very different. And by the way, it's not regulated. It certainly is something that legally can be bought by anybody at any age if it shows up in convenience stores. As far as this happening, again, I think if you watch that Larry Barker, investigation, we've talked to enough people around Albuquerque. It's pretty widespread, and it certainly is happening in retail stores. And it's it's a poison that's causing problems with our kids. And so just some clarification on that, Madam President. And again, any questions on enforcement and some other items that I know that APD is here to address those as well. Thank you.
Councilors, any questions or comments? I have a few questions myself regarding similar to what you just indicated, regarding the inspections and kind of how our city departments are going to be able to do this. So Dr. Sinkel, I guess I'll start with you and then you can direct how you need to, but I would like to know when inspectors are to go to any of these companies, how are they going to know that this hemp product will contain more than 0.3%?
Madam President, both environmental health and APD are looking into the enforcement requirements. And I do believe Commander Veers is here if we want to understand what they have learned related to the lab capabilities for testing. So I'm probably answering more than your first question in this, but our current crime lab lab capabilities does not have this capability, so they are looking at outside labs for testing. Our environmental health department has looked at the requirements within the enforcement section and what is being regulated, and believe that they can definitely meet the requirements related to the education portion that's listed in there. We believe that there will have to be some protocols designed for how they would do that inspection or where to even do that inspection. Today, there are locations that potentially sell these products or would sell products that could or may or not may not be of concern. And but they don't probably go to every entity that might have those, depending on what kind of business it is, and based on what EHD today already regulates or visits. So they're looking at how those SOPs would be incorporated into their inspections, and the products, from what we learned, would have to be tested by a lab.
So let me preface this with, I absolutely want to keep children safe. I fully agree with regulating and making sure that it is not just a free-for-all to have any kind of youth buy anything that is dangerous for their consumption. And having children of my own who are perfect angels, you know, I mean, things happen and they get into riffraff and they do stuff. So I think that it's really important that we absolutely regulate and that the government regulates. But my concern is, and I've expressed this at other council meetings in the past, of putting the cart before the horse. I want to make sure, talking through the questions tonight and getting information, are we even going to be able to do this as a city? So from what I just heard, if you have environmental health, I mean, are they going to go into every hemp business in Albuquerque? Is that going to be what, if this passes as written, is that the intention? Is that environmental health will now have inspectors going into every hemp business in Albuquerque? We'll start with that question.
Madam President, I think understanding whether it would be through complaint requirement or posting of the signage, and without signage, then we would inspect. I think the Environmental Health Department does have concern about having the capacity to add the businesses, not knowing today what the numbers would be. So I think everyone is in the fact-finding stage right now to ensure that we would know what that impact would be. Our conclusion has been that we would come to this council for an appropriation or other, if we face hurdles in our inability to enact what is within this enforcement clause.
Okay, so if there's a complaint that comes in, or if signage isn't present, and now environmental health goes into one of these companies, I'm assuming it's environmental health, I don't know, because it also says there's different agencies in the legislation. So it's environmental health, code enforcement, and or APD is kind of what's in my head, even though I think only APD and environmental health are the ones listed in here, plus any additional city departments. So if that were the case, and any of these city departments were to go in, I'm back at, how do they know? How do our city employees know that there is more than 0.3% of this Delta synthetic agent inside the hemp? Do they, was I understanding they have to send it to a lab?
Madam President, that is our current understanding, is that we would have to send it to an outside lab.
And so we don't have the capabilities to, you can leave your microphone on just for a second. So we don't have the capabilities to send it to a lab currently, or we don't have a lab for us to do and test.
Madam President, and like I said, Commander Veers is here, and so he could speak specifically to the work, the investigative work they've done to understand. But yes, it would have to be an outside lab, and we would have, I believe, a new contract we'd have to work on engaging them.
And so what would be if this is, now we've retrieved some product from a business that had a complaint, and now we are going to send it out to a lab somewhere, and what is the business going to do in the meantime? Do they continue to operate, or do they have to shut down temporarily? Like, what is the expectation? And I don't know if this is for Dr. Single or if this is for Mr. Morrow and the intention, or even the sponsor, but what's gonna happen to the business if there's this, I'm gonna say threat at that point of maybe looking at, if somebody has said, oh, I have a complaint about this, do they get shut down temporarily only to maybe find out later that there was nothing illegal happening in the first place? Councilor Lewis, do you?
Yeah, Madam President. Yeah, some of those are very clear in the bill. I mean, they have to have a sign up. There is no, as far as the actual citations are very clear in the bill as well. So I would say similar as when it comes to enforcement, and I would love to hear from the APD staff. I mean, it'd be the same thing if there was someone selling cocaine out of a gas station where there's a complaint about it. It may not be that we have officers and EHD that's going around to every store and trying to make sure they're not selling cocaine, but where there might be a complaint. And so again, the bill's pretty clear on the citation. It's clear on the requirements. I think some things that would need to be worked out, just like there would be with anything, a time period of something getting tested and coming back with that, and where it would be tested. But these are, the kinds of products that we get tested, all the time through the department. But I mean, Mr. Morrow, would you anything else that would be clarified
first,
in
before
that?
we do that, is I still have the floor. Thank you for answering, but I've read the bill multiple times. It's not very clear to me, Counselor. So I do have more questions, and I'll be happy to go back to Mr. Morrow as well. But to me, it's not clear on what the protocol is in here. There's a whole bunch of gray areas on what I'm concerned the cart's before the horse. I'm concerned that while this is maybe really good intention, we're going to end up having a potential to have to come back, as we have many other times, and have to retract this same thing that's getting passed with good intention. But it's not clear to me, and so until I know some of the answers to these questions specifically, or if you can have, Mr. Morrow, if you can point out where it is clear in here how an inspector or an APD officer is going to go into one of these companies, retrieve based off of a complaint, and then it does not say in here that we have to send it to a lab.
And Council President Bassan, that is correct, and I am unfamiliar with the actual mechanics to derive the threshold question as to whether it exceeds 0.3% THC level, and so that I believe was what CAO Single was describing as needing lab testing, but that is not defined in this bill.
Okay, and I guess the cost of how much these lab tests are going to cost the city of Albuquerque, again with good intention, how much is that going to cost us in a very, very tight $1.5 billion budget, right? So now what are we gonna do? So another thing in here is that it says that an operating license can be revoked. Is an operating license the same as a business license? Because we've recently changed the language, and I wanna make sure that I'm not missing something in that an operating license is something that I would like to have that explained as well, because I think that they're probably the same, but I would like to have verification. Mr. Morrow or anybody at the table?
Council President Bassan, I believe the intent of the legislation that it would be the same, but that is a business license or business registration are defined terms, and that is not an operating license.
Okay, and so what would that be? What would we be removing from the business? Do they have an operating license? Because in the last couple of years, we have changed the environmental health ordinance to say that businesses now have a business license. So is that something that needs to be amended if we are going to be moving forward, or do we need to define a separate term?
And Council President Bassan, I would agree with you that it would probably be best to be amended to say that it was a business license.
Okay. And so I guess how is this going to be affected by I mean, we've heard from people, I've done research today, I've asked around, so how is this going to be affected if we were to pass this even with the questions I still have remaining? How is this going to be affected if the state and the federal government come forward in a pretty quick amount of time. I mean, again, I'm worried about our children. I want to keep them safe. But I don't think that we're going to be able to merely keep them safe by passing this right now, at least in my opinion, based off of what I just heard. But how are we going to be affected once the state and the federal government come back to us with whatever it is that they decide? Are we going to have to then amend this and follow what they say, or is it home rule that we can go ahead and be, as with several other things, more specific?
And Council President Bassan, as it's speculative, so I couldn't give you a direct answer, but generally if it was regulated at the federal level, we would be beholden to the federal regulations. We would not necessarily need to change anything because we would likely be preempted, but to your point, if we are more specific, we are generally allowed to do that as part of our home rule capacity, but without knowing what ultimately could get passed at a state or federal level, it would, we wouldn't be able to know with specificity whether this would survive at this point.
And Mr. Morrow, do you know, have you heard or do you know anything about when the federal government may or may not be looking at making any kind of legal changes in regard to this?
And Council President Bassan, I don't. It's speculation.
Thank you. I do have more questions, but at the same time, I think that overall my point, I hope, is kind of clear. I'm concerned about the cart before the horse, and I'm concerned about the timeline. I'm concerned about needing some of these issues and these questions answered before we say, let's do this, before we figure out how to get the details in line, even though I think the intention is good. So Councilor Grout, you have your hand up, and I would like to go to you next.
Thank you, Madam President. I have two questions. Does this impact the sale of gummy THC products in cannabis retail shops? And I don't know who needs to answer that.
Mr. Morrow?
And Council President Bassan, Councilor Grout, no, it does not regulate the sale of anything sold in state-regulated cannabis THC shops.
Okay, thank you, sir. One more question, Madam President. Does it impact the THC beverages that are sold in liquor stores?
And Council President Bassan and Councilor Grout, it should not have any impact on those products, but I am slightly unfamiliar with how those are regulated. I personally have been a little confused about seeing them in retail establishments, so I couldn't answer definitively, but I don't believe it should have an effect.
Thank you.
Councilor Baca?
Thank you, Madam President. I think, spent a little bit of time with this, spent a little bit of time in industry learning more on this topic. I think it's important to note that we're not talking about THC at the local cannabis shop that that we passed regulation on last year to kind of limit those shops. This is a product that is not sold in those shops. This is a product that's, while it has THC, it is sold out of gas stations. It's not regulated. And so that's kind of I think it's important to note that. We're not talking about the cannabis industry in that sense. And in that sense, we need to, our kids need to be, I wouldn't want my kid to be able to go buy some THC from the local gas station. And I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say we need to regulate that, or there's going to be trouble regulating that, because we already regulate a lot of these things in our gas stations or in other shops, or, we're not going to sell booze in a regular gas station. We have people that can go check on that stuff. I know there are state agencies that can test hemp products. I don't know the cost, but I know that exists. It's not, this isn't something out of the realm of unreasonableness, I would say. The other part, I do hope the Farm Bill gets passed and it has everything we need in there. I have zero faith that it's going to get passed right now. We're currently on a 1-year extension. I also don't have a lot of trust in what gets passed these days, the way things are at the federal level. So while I hope that works out, who knows how that's actually going to work out, if it gets extended in its current form again, or if it actually gets fixed the way we hope it does. It's just a big, in the meantime, let's take care of at least the city of Albuquerque. Thank you.
Councilor Rogers.
Thank you, Madam President. I had the same kind of questions. I reached out to our federal congressional delegation just about what's happening federally. Right now, I think some have mentioned the 2024 Farm Bill that they're looking at. They want to actually close these loopholes federally and finalize, it's already introduced, and finalize this later of this year. One of the other implications that I think I didn't see here that I agree, we need to protect kids. One of the things is the packaging of this specific, I mean, I think if we ban it, then we don't have to worry about packaging. But I think the packaging is clearly marketing to youth. And I'm just wondering just about the packaging part. I don't know, I think I just answered my own question by if we just ban them, then we don't have to worry about the packaging. And it just occurred to me as I was saying it out loud. So thank you, Madam President.
Councilor Feeblecorn.
Thank you, Madam President. I just keep hearing that we want to regulate this industry, which I agree with. I think we all agree that we don't want children to be able to access this at a gas station or anywhere else. But I just question the use of the term regulate versus prohibit. What I'm seeing in front of me prohibits the sale of this, period, not regulate the sale so you can't buy it if you're a juvenile, or it has to be labeled in such a way that we know that what it contains. Maybe Mr. Morrow can say, is the intent of what's before us is to prohibit this product, period. Is that correct?
And Council President Bassan, Council Feeblecorn, I would defer to Councilor Lewis, but I believe that is the intent.
So, Madam President, I guess my point is just that we continue to use the word regulate, which I would fully support, but this is not a regulation. This is a prohibition on a product. So, thank you.
Councilors, any other questions or comments? I just want to take a quick moment to say that I am well aware that this is not about cannabis and that this is about hemp, which are two very, very different things. I'm well aware that we're talking about the sales at gas stations and other unregulated locations. And I also am fully aware that I want my children to be safe and not have access to all of that. That is something I want to be very clear that I'm clear with. But what I also am clear with is that I feel like I have common sense questions that are, why are we going to consider doing something before we actually know how to do it? So with that, I just want to make sure to clear the air that I'm very clear on cannabis versus hemp, gas stations, and easy access. Seeing no further questions, Councilor Lewis to close.
Thank you, Madam President. I urge your support.
The motion is for a due pass to R78. Madam Clerk.
Councilor Baca?
Yes.
Councilor Champagne?
Yes.
Councilor Feeblecorn?
No.
Councilor Grout?
Yes.
Councilor Lewis?
Yes.
Vice President Pena?
Yes.
Councilor Rogers?
Yes.
Councilor Sanchez?
Yes.
President Bassan?
No.
Passes on a 7-2 vote.
Councilors, we're moving on to agenda item B. Councilor Grout, R130 by request.
Thank you, Madam President. R130 is amending the adopted capital implementation program of the City of Albuquerque by supplementing current operating grant appropriations and approving new projects. I move it to pass.
There's a motion and a second by Councilor Rogers. Councilor Grout to open.
Thank you. These are monies that come from the state, I believe, and they need to be appropriated so that they can be spent on some of the projects that we have in our city. We do have a couple of amendments as well.
Before we go to, oh no, never mind. Let's go to amendments. Councilor Grout with amendment number 1 marked. Well, I guess amendment number 1 is on paper for us here and in your iPads, yes. And we'll start with that one.
Thank you, Madam President. Floor amendment number 1 on page 2 after line 23, insert the following, that the following appropriation of $525,000 from Bernalillo County and $5.5 million from Explora Science Center are hereby authorized and approved projects. These projects are authorized to be appropriated to a specific grant and capital fund as follows. Then it's listed there. The explanation, this amendment appropriates funding from the 2024 Bernalillo County GO for the construction of the Briante Early Learning Center through an approved intergovernmental agreement and received purchase order from the Bernalillo County. Also, the amendment appropriates funding donated by Explora through an approved memorandum of understanding to be utilized in the construction of Explora Briante Cradle to Career STEM Learning Campus. The City of Albuquerque has had written agreements with Explora for the operations and lease of this facility since it opened. And it has a current agreement in place through 2030. And I move a due pass on this, or I ask for approval on this one.
There's a motion for approval on amendment number 1. Is there a second? There's a second from Counselor Sanchez. Counselors, any questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion is to approve amendment number 1 for R130. Madam Clerk.
Counselor Baca?
Yes.
Counselor Champagne?
Yes.
Counselor Foucault?
Yes.
Counselor Grau?
Yes.
Counselor Lewis?
Yes.
Vice President Pena?
Yes.
Counselor Rogers?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez?
Yes.
President Bassan?
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
Counselor Grau, amendment number 2.
Thank you, Madam President. Okay, floor amendment number 2, it's a technical amendment to correct the total. On page 1, line 23, amend the following. Section 2, that the following appropriations of $4,516,567 are hereby and to be continued. I move approval.
There's a motion and I'll do a second. Counselors, this is in your iPad. It was a little bit later that it was added. It is to go ahead and correct for the change from the amendment before. So it's later on in the bill, and that's why this technical amendment has been provided, I believe. No, I was wrong. Mr. Motzko.
Madam Council President Bassan, this actually is a technical amendment from the FGO amendment that we added the Calle Cuerta grant. We added section 2. It was a $1.6 million inclusion, but we forgot to add the first line. It changes it from 2.8 to 4.5. So it's just a technical amendment.
I stand corrected. Thank you. There is a motion and a second. Counselors, any questions or comments on amendment number 2? Madam Clerk?
Counselor Baca?
Yes.
Counselor Champagne?
Yes.
Counselor Peoplecorn?
Yes.
Counselor Grau?
Yes.
Counselor Lewis?
Yes.
Vice President Pena?
Yes.
Counselor Rogers?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez?
Yes.
President Bassan?
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
We're going to move on to public comment. Mr. Cornelius?
Thank you, Madam President. We have Dr. Lisa Christopherson to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, President Bassan, city councilors. I am asking for Blake Road between Unser Boulevard and Coors Boulevard. There's a school that is there, a charter school, and I've multiple times reached out to the city and to the county and to the state, and to Councilor Pena has been helping me. It's a road that is caught between multi-jurisdictions. It has a school, and there are, just as last week, an elderly person shuffling with their walker. It's just dirt. There is no sidewalk from the trailer parks down to where the store is, the gas station. And I promised, I doubt they're going for the THC or the hemp stuff, but they're just trying to get some food. And we have no sidewalks, and we don't have, and it's just dangerous. And so the city has already done the study. It is a dangerous road. What can we do? What do we need to do to get money into somehow the city? You know, if we have money sitting around and it comes out later that there was money that could have been used on lights or sidewalks or something, how do you think the voters are going to think about that? So I know you guys are limited by the mayor's his budget, but please, this is a part of the road that it needs sidewalks. We've got kids and older people, and it's dirt on most of it. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm not seeing Don Green V. Hill on Zoom, so that does conclude comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Vice President?
Thank you, Madam President. So Ms. Turner is here. I'm not going to ask you to come up, but if you can reach out to Ms. Christopherson. I think you've spoken with her before, but I know that, you know, we have had, we're just trying to get the money to get that that road done, that and 20 other roads in District 3. But yeah, so if you could just reach out to her and let her know where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselors, we're back on our 130 as amended. Any questions or comments? Counselor Grout to close.
Thank you, Madam President. I urge your support.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, the motion is for a due pass of R130 as amended.
Counselor Baca?
Yes.
Counselor Champagne?
Yes.
Counselor Peebles?
Yes.
Counselor Grau?
Yes.
Counselor Lewis?
Yes.
Vice President Pena?
Yes.
Counselor Rogers?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez?
Yes.
President Bassan?
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
We are moving on to agenda item C, R145. Counselor Baca.
Thank you, Madam President. R145, directing the administration to support local performing arts in City Council District 2, conduct a minimum number of events at city-owned performance spaces, and simplify the rental process for city-owned performance spaces. This is a bill that came from the lack of use of our spaces for the past, since COVID, to be honest. In any case, the administration and everybody now is on board, working together on the same page, which wasn't the case when I first introduced this bill. So procedurally, how do I withdraw? Do I need to move to pass first?
No, you can go ahead and motion to withdraw.
I motion to withdraw.
There is a motion for withdrawal. Is there a second? There's a second from Counselor Rogers. Madam Clerk.
Counselor Baca?
Yes.
Counselor Champagne?
Yes.
Counselor Peebles?
Yes.
Counselor Grau?
Yes.
Counselor Lewis?
Yes.
Vice President Pena?
Yes.
Counselor Rogers?
Yes.
Counselor Sanchez?
Yes.
President Bassan?
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
We are moving on to other business, which there is none, so we will now be at administrative Q&A. Counselors, there are some questions from Counselor Champagne to begin, and then we will go to others if you have them.
Thank you, Madam President. Put my glasses on. I just have a couple of questions, I believe, for the administration. Recently in the news, we saw that there were 6 hotels that were closed down. How many violations did these locations receive and over what time period?
Madam President, Counselor Champagne, Director Alan Varela is here. Oh, sorry. Deputy Director Jeremy Kaiser from our Planning Department is here and can speak to specific questions related to the hotel operations that we've had. Mr. Kaiser, welcome, Director.
Thank you. Council President, Councilor Champagne, what was the question?
Thank you, Director. I was curious about the violations. We closed down 6 hotels and such, and I'm just kind of curious on the amount of violations and what time period that they had.
So I don't have the specifics of the violations, but that's something that I can get for you. That's not a problem. I do have an overview of some of the violations that were found on the last operation, and I can give you some of the highlights if you'd like some of those.
Please.
So with the Barcelona Suites, we found a certificate of occupancy for noncompliance that that facility is not meant to be a short-term facility. It is being used in a long-term capacity. We had unpermitted work dealing with the pool furnace, filtration systems, plumbing, stair replacements. We found illegal construction throughout the facility to include the roof and some of the exterior areas. Roof and exterior damage to include extensive wear onto the roof, damaged scuppers, missing penetration boots, HVAC infrastructure overrun by pigeon infestation, interior disrepair. We found holes in the drywall, ceilings in many holes in the ceilings in many of the rooms. Peeling paint, mold stains. Mold was running rampant throughout the facility. Bathroom damage. We found where toilets and tubs were crumbling into pieces, broken towel racks, shower rods, patched holes, and inoperable light fixtures and fans. We found a multitude of wiring and lighting deficiencies throughout the property. biological hazards, ventilation issues, mold and water intrusion, inadequate hot water, non-functioning or damaged plumbing fixtures, improper kitchen use, and that's the code enforcement side. That's the nutshell version of it.
Madam President, Associate Director, is that?
Deputy.
Deputy Director. Thank you for the correction of the title. Is that all from Barcelona courts?
So that is the code enforcement's portion, and that's just the highlights. That's not the entirety.
How, Madam President, that's a long list.
Yes.
For you to find on, I suspect, and please confirm or deny if this isn't the first time that long list has been noted, correct? This isn't an overnight thing. How many times was this place inspected to find this list until it was decided that this isn't being fixed?
Madam President, Councilor Champagne, so if you're asking like how many previous inspections the city has done on that particular facility, is that what you're asking?
Please, yes.
So the program was under the ADAPT program, and to where there was an overview of the property. What we found with the property was during the ADAPT inspections, they were just reviewing small portions of the property and reviewing some of the areas. A full inspection was not conducted on the facility. That is what code enforcement conducted on the facility, based off of the complaints and what we saw during a recent ADAPT inspection of the property.
Okay. I don't know if Councilor Grout has a question off of this.
I think that she has other questions. If
Okay.
you want to proceed. I will come back to you, Councilor Grau. I will come back, but I'd rather finish here.
Thank
too.
you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Will you get with me, Madam President, will you make sure to just get with the rest of the other 6 locations of the hotels that were closed, and just some of the information, the timeline and violations? Would that be possible?
Sure. Madam President, Councilor Champagne, that's an easy thing to do.
Thank you.
Councilor Grau, is yours from code enforcement?
Yes, Madam President.
Okay, go ahead.
Madam President, thank you. I would like to thank the deputy. I get to drive by this property every day on my way to work, and for years I've been doing that, and I see what's out there. And so I actually went when I heard that they were going to be closing them or closing them temporarily until they get things fixed. I did go by to see for myself what they were doing. And I can report that they, first of all, from the city side, they had all departments. It was very, I was impressed with how it was handled. ACS was there, they had APD. They had shuttles helping them. They also made sure that all of these folks had a place to go. So they had motel vouchers ready, handily ready. They were able to get, I believe, 6 individuals who are veterans over to the Veterans Integration Center so that they can be connected with caseworkers to help them get into a permanent place. I also got to speak to some of the residents there. And then I also I got to see the mess that is there. None of these people need to be living in these conditions. And I also got to see the property owner or a representative for the property owner. They had flown in, and they would like to get this place fixed up. From the outside, it doesn't look that bad. When you go inside and go room by room, it's a hot mess. And so I am grateful that it was how it was handled. All of these people did receive services and a place to go. And I do hope and I do feel like they will have follow-up so that they won't be displaced. I also hope that property owner does fix it up, because it will be a lovely place for people to live. 163 units. We all know we can use that in here, but it does need to be in good shape. So hate when things like this happen, but I think it's important that the people that live there with dignity free of crime. And I hope that this property is revitalized so that it can serve the community well. And so I'd like to thank the city for how they did manage this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselors, are there any other questions for code enforcement? Thank you, Director. Have a great evening. Counselor Champagne?
Thank you, Madam President. This question's for the administration. There was recently brought up in the media that the safe outdoor space, that people are establishing a safe outdoor space by the West Side Shelter. Is that correct? In my information that I think I read?
Madam President, Councilor Champagne, we recently shared with the community through communications that there are properties that could be considered for safe outdoor spaces, but all of those properties would, anyone that was interested in operating a safe outdoor space, we welcomed them to come and discuss what we had put on the, published on the website. But any safe outdoor space would still have to go through the planning department's application process and the requirements that we have for safe outdoor space.
Okay. Madam President, my question, I just have two of them. If it's city-owned property and these places are establishing safe outdoor spaces, who's liable when occurrences come up?
Madam President, Councilor Champagne, through the application process, we would make those determinations based upon understanding who that operator may be. I mean, there's so many different factors that can come in through that application process. Our goal was to remind folks that safe outdoor space is within our ordinances, and then to be open to whether or not folks are interested in the community. Operators may be, partners or operators may be interested, but may not have physical properties. So that was our goal with this communication.
So we didn't, Madam President, we weren't able to really think about who's liable if there's something that's, obviously if they set up this deal and it's an agreement and a criminal incident happens, is the city open for this?
Madam President, Councilor Champagne, any criminal activity obviously would still be handled by APD, Metro Security. We would obviously be managing all of those issues as we would any other property, and understand that those are issues that come about related to any property, actually, with individuals living on them.
Okay. So I would suspect that we are left liable for that, and our pockets are deeper than normal, so we are open for lawsuits if some incident happens on a safe outdoor space on city property. What does the city get out, Madam President, I apologize, what does the city get out from these agreements?
Madam President, Councilor Champagne, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the end of it.
When you go into a contract with these programs or these entities that are going out there to do this, what is it that the city receives in return for giving these spaces out?
Madam President, Councilor Champagne, in that application process, we would enter into what types of consideration we would have in any agreement. Again, that happens at the time of understanding what they intend to bring in that agreement. In the bigger picture, as a city, we would receive the opportunity for someone to be operating an environment for individuals that prefer not to be in shelters or in other types of services, to be in an environment in which meets the safe outdoor space requirements in that application process. So there has to be appropriate secured, if I'm recollecting accurately, the area has to be secured with like a fence or something along those lines. There has to be hygiene support for the individuals on site, and then of course security of the environment for our folks. And so we believe that there is a value and a benefit to the community for safe outdoor spaces to be run in partnership with groups that are interested in doing so.
Okay, Madam President, so the city is not going to get rent from these companies for the space?
Madam President, Councilor Champagne.
No monetary or anything like that?
We haven't considered the exact consideration at this point, based upon not knowing, you don't know what the square footage is, you don't know what the intention is exactly. So in that contract process, we would do so. we would make that consideration.
You'd say you're going in with a blank slate of what we as a city want in return for the land, our land being used, the taxpayers' land being, okay. Madam President, then I just have one last kind of information or question. There was a homicide up at Tramway in Montgomery months ago. And I'm just kind of curious, we haven't heard anything about the investigation, and I know we can't talk details about ongoing investigations, but there really isn't much talk about what it was, and I'm getting a lot of constituents asking because they're not seeing it.
Madam President, Councilor Champagne, I will follow up with you to give you what we can related to that specific incident. Do you remember the month? No, it's okay. We'll look it up. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, just one last, I read this wrong. The National Guard, I saw that there was, Madam President, there was training and stuff, and I think there was a couple of public information events that went on. I wasn't able to attend them, but what's going on with that training with the National Guard?
Madam President, Councilor Champagne, Commander Veers is here, and he can specifically speak to what we have been doing relating to the National Guard, their duties and their trainings. Good evening, Commander.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the council. Just to speak on some of the training for the National Guard. So the level of training that was provided to them was pretty much equivalent to PSA, or police service aides within the department. They don't do the full training as police service aides, so it's kind of a cut down version of that, since their duties are going to be limited to just a few different things. All of that training has been completed by APD with the New Mexico National Guard. Basically, it consists of like radio procedures, how to block traffic, holding perimeters, identifying illegal substances, identifying evidence, things of that nature. So just very basic, simple scene preservation and blocking roads, directing traffic, things of that nature. They are going to be limited to 3 different areas. Primarily in the field, they'll just be doing perimeters and scene security. So if there's a SWAT call or a major traffic fatality that requires officers to block roads, they'll be assisting with traffic control to free up PSAs and other officers to go take calls for service. So it'll help us out in the field. They'll be assisting with certain duties at the Real-Time Crime Center. And they'll also be helping at the Prisoner Transport Unit as far as collecting individuals' properties as they're being processed in to be transported up to the jail. So just to expedite some of those processes and free up some of the current officers, PSAs, and Prisoner Transport Unit officers to just assist in that way.
Okay. Madam President and Commander, is it APD that did the training at the RBT?
Madam President and Councilor Champagne, yes, so APD did do some of the training with New Mexico National Guard. It was the bulk of it. It did occur up in Santa Fe. There was some training, hands-on scenario-based training, like crisis intervention training, things of that nature that were done at the reality-based training center here in Albuquerque, but most of that training was conducted up in Santa Fe.
Okay. Madam President, what tools will the National Guard be issued? But based on the training, you guys had radios, so.
Madam President and Councilor Champagne, based on the training that was provided, the only thing they'll be carrying is OC spray, which is equivalent to a police service aid, and that's trained as a defense mechanism only. They do not get involved in uses of force since they're not sworn police officers, so that's just a defense agent, as we offer the police service aides to protect themselves if they find themselves in a situation where they need to defend themselves.
Okay. And Madam President, so no handcuffing techniques? No handcuffing will be issued, no sort of detention handcuffing techniques were trained at all?
Madam President, Councilor Champagne, APD did not train any handcuffing techniques. And as far as my knowledge is, they will not be issued any handcuffs to be carrying during this process.
And you said they'll be used in the RBT? Is that correct, Commander? Or I'm sorry, Madam President, they'll be used at the RTCC?
Yes.
What, Madam President, what sworn officers are stationed there that they'll be replacing?
Madam President, Councilor Champagne, I don't believe it's sworn officers that'll be replaced at RTC. I think it's just to supplement some of the functions that are done. Those are a lot of electronics, providing information over the radio to officers responding to calls, data search, things of that nature that they can provide any type of assistance.
And Madam President, how many of them will be heading to the RTCC?
Madam President, Councilor Champagne, I don't know the exact numbers of the breakdown of how many are going to which station.
Okay.
I can get that for you and circle back on that.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Madam President. That's all.
Councilor Rogers?
Thank you, Madam President. And I think my questions are more for the administration because I don't think you were involved in the town halls. So thank you for, don't feel like you have to answer these questions.
Sorry, just in case, there is another counselor that might have a question for you, so just stand by, but go ahead, Councilor Rogers.
Thank you, Madam President. So I have originally asked for these town halls because I thought it was important to give community a heads up, even though we didn't get a heads up about National Guard being called in. I have to say on the record, I pulled out of participating in those town halls because I don't feel like we followed our own toolkit on how to do community engagement at all. We have a toolkit that I helped develop in OEI that was not used. I was very vocal, directly with administration and chief about what we needed, what we should have before we go to community. One of my biggest things is we're hearing that this is citywide, right? That the National Guard is going to be citywide. Why were there no town halls planned outside of my district? First question, and I think that's for the administration, not for you. So when are we going to have town halls? Because my district feels like they're just going to be in my area, especially when the only rollout for community engagement was in my district.
Madam President, Councilor Rogers, I think it was I'm just going to say an oversight or a lack of coordination to think through with you more effectively about the community engagement portion of it. And I think our team felt they were reaching out in the right way. That doesn't mean that is accurate, if that makes sense. And so I want to acknowledge that. And then I think the team wanted to make sure that they were, based upon your feedback, making sure that they were meeting your request for the community that was feeling that we weren't communicating with with your district specifically, and even Southeast Heights. Pick the parameter of the area, and so the design for those town halls was to make sure we were responsive based upon the request of the area that you wanted to make sure was addressed and provided additional information. If there are counselors that want additional, we can absolutely do that and find a best practice for communicating that. I think both APD and our Office of Equity Inclusion, as well as our comms team, have been working to make sure that the information is shared broadly across the entire city, and so there is not a targeted group of community that it's intended to communicate with.
Thank you, Madam President. I think it's just contrary, because I did share all this with your team before these were even announced. I shared very specifically, you need to have a list of where they're all across the whole city before we roll anything out. I think it was in a direct response to me asking at the council meeting, like, hey, I haven't heard about this. But rather than rushing to do this, it kind of backfired. Everything that I gave your department, everything, community brought up. I asked for an FAQ sheet. They obliged and put together an FAQ sheet, but the FAQ sheet, the biggest part was, what are they wearing? What is the uniform that they're going to have on, right? Make sure those are on the FAQ. I still haven't received a response from the department about what's happening with those. I had to watch the town hall myself to see that you had the uniforms there for the second town hall, which is good, but they're still not on the FAQ sheet. The FAQ sheet was not translated. We have a language, I just highlighted language access in APD, and here we are at town halls in my hood with no language access. Unacceptable. The other thing is, what does CERT stand for? I've been getting a ton of questions about the label that's on the patch that they are wearing. People are triggered that it means cell extraction response team, like when you're in jail and they have to send somebody to get you out of your cell. So what does that stand for, and how did we choose CERT for, what does that mean? What does CERT mean on their badge?
Madam President, Councilor Rogers, neither of us know, so we'll get that answer. Because it's not something that I know off the top of my head.
right? And I think, Madam President, to the point is, I know very well what my community wants and what they are going to come to you with. I listed them out one by one by one. And I have to say to my community watching in District 6, thank you. Everything I said to this administration, you all said vocally during those town halls. And I just want to say I have been screaming. I have been all the way till I rescinded my participation because of how horribly these were put together. And so what I expect to see is that this is happening citywide, not just in my district. The other thing is, do they have radio access? National Guard's gonna have access to APD radio
Madam
systems?
President, Council Rogers, yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So I'll stop here by saying, just pull out the toolkit. We put together an OEI and go down the checklist and use that for any further community engagement. And please, I asked very sternly to have these for our unsheltered population, for folks in MATS, substance abuse, the folks that are actually really scared out here about it, what it means for them. I asked for that and it was ignored, completely ignored. So thank you, District 6 community that are watching, that are here, that were very vocal about the things we want. Look, we do need help. APD needs the help. I understand that. But I think that there's a way we could work with community to make sure that we feel safe also. So please don't get it twisted. I don't like militarized things in our community, but I also understand APD needs help. But there's a way we could balance that with community so that they know where to report things if they feel or see something that isn't right, that they have a place to report that. And that's also not on the FAQ sheet that I asked for. So let's continue to work together. I don't want to just say, blah, bad job. Let's work together, which I tried to do. And I felt ignored, straight up ignored about what I needed in my district. So thank you.
Dr. Singal.
Madam President, thank you. And I just wanted to, I think that Chief Medina has shared with Madam President and Vice President the general's phone number related for the National Guard. If any counselor wants to speak with them, we wanted to make sure that that was accessible. So if you don't mind sharing that contact information with the other counselors, because we do encourage anyone to talk with the National Guard, obviously, as our partner, and the governor's office, obviously, as the commander-in-chief of the National Guard. And so I just wanted to make sure that we extended that information, and Chief shared with me that he had done so prior to the meeting, and so that you all could have that information tonight.
Thank you. Councilor Sanchez?
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I just wanted to start out by saying that we need to remember that the mayor did not give counselors the courtesy to contact us in reference to even seeing if the National Guard was necessary, and we also didn't get contacted to see, and to even talk to the National Guard or see how they feel about being taken out of their original mission and being utilized as police service aides, because that's all the training that they receive. I think these individuals deserve way more respect than what the city of Albuquerque is giving them. And I just want to say that I wish we could do better for our people in uniform in reference to the city of Albuquerque. But I've got a couple of questions that follow along with some other questions that the other counselors have asked. So how do these individuals, how do these National Guard members actually get transported to the crime scene? Are they paired up with officers?
Madam President, Councilor Sanchez, so they will do a training period where they will ride with PSAs or officers to go to scenes. However, there's going to be some vehicles provided to them, police service aid vehicles that we have. They'll be issued. So they were trained on the city operator's permit and authorized to drive a city vehicle under that purview. So they will be able to operate those PSA vehicles to either drive to scenes, hold perimeter on scenes, and things of that nature.
And do they wear body armor?
Yes.
How are they helping when they have downtime? What are their assignment? What's their role? Just like a regular police officer has a role to continue to work, be proactive, be out there doing things and like, just like a PSA would have? Are their roles defined in reference to what their job description is when they are actually not being utilized?
Madam President, Councilor Sanchez, good question. Their primary goal is going to be response. So they will be a reactive thing where they come to those particular type of scenes. When those are not around, they obviously have the eyes and ears out there to see things that are happening, and radio communication to report things that are happening, same as PSA. So if they see certain crimes occurring or an incident taking place, they can radio that in to get officers there to respond to that incident more quickly rather than waiting for a call for service to come in from 911 or 242 cops.
Thank you. And how are we documenting how they were actually helping to replace or make sure that we have more boots on the ground? How are we documenting that action? So for example, if there's an actual crime scene or there's an issue that happens that they need to be responding to, how are we going to document how many officers that they were able to relieve so that the officer could handle calls for service? And is that going to determine these National Guard members, are they going to make sure that officers are going to be more proactive on the streets, so we should see more proactive police responses?
Madam President, Councilor Sanchez, that's the goal, is ultimately to free up the officers to be more proactive and handle the calls for service that are coming in as they come in to help reduce the response times and not be as lengthy. With that, as far as documenting that, it would be through calls for service, like the CAD system. So it would be marked, if they went to that call, if they held perimeter, if they freed up an officer to go available for calls for service, that could all be tracked through the CAD system.
So each individual will have their own call sign and radio?
As far as the call sign through the dispatch, I don't have clarification on that. I'd have to circle back, and that's a DC Griego question. As far as dispatch.
Okay, because the reason why I'm asking that is because every single person that is out there that actually has police responsibility, whether they're a PSA or whether they're a police officer, has access to a radio, and dispatch should know exactly where they are at, what they're doing, and access to an emergency button on that radio.
Councilors, any other questions or comments? I'm sorry, Councilor Champagne.
Thank you, Madam President. I would just request for a presentation in my district, please.
Dr. Single.
Madam President, Councilor Champagne, I think that it makes sense for there to be an opportunity to both talk with the National Guard, and I think that's what we wanted to make sure, why we share that information so we can provide appropriate briefing.
Thank you.
Councilor Grout? Councilor Grout, you're muted.
Hi there,
There we
thank
go.
you. Just a second. Hold on. Sorry, I'm in a hotel room. Thank you, Madam President. I have some questions. I don't have any questions about this. I have questions about something else.
I think that we're done with APD for now. Thank you. Councilor Grout, go ahead.
Thank you. My questions are for Triple H.
Madam President, Councilor Grout, Deputy Director Joseph Montoya is here to answer the questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Madam CAO. Hi, Mr. Montoya. Thank you for being here this evening. In May, my questions are about the city-owned land for housing development. In May, you all put out an RFI for developers to partner on building affordable housing on city-owned land. So I have a few questions. I did get these to you before, so you'll be able to answer them for me. How are you all defining affordable?
Madam President and Councilor, thank you very much for allowing us to speak on this subject, because there has been some issues, so we appreciate your asking these questions. Affordable housing is defined by the City of Albuquerque as housing that's affordable to people of 80% or households of to 80% of median income, and they're not allowed to pay more than 30% of that income towards their housing. So So currently, we just received new information last week or the week before. So as an example, we have a household of 4 is now at $73,000. That's usually two folks earning funds.
Oh, okay. Thank you. How long will rent be controlled for the developers?
Madam President, Councilor, in all our developments, we have a mandatory at least minimum 30-year period of affordability.
Okay, thank you. Is there a requirement for the number of units that must be affordable, or will some be market rate?
Madam President, Councilor, for these particular RFI, I do want to clarify for this particular RFI, we are not asking developers to actually do any development. This is not RFP. This particular RFI is just asking if there's developers that are interested in providing an affordable housing opportunity. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, thank you for that clarification. And I'm aware of that, but lots of questions that we have. I know you know that. If it's mixed, what's the mandatory ratio?
Madam President, Councilor, in these particular lots that we are looking at, they're primarily single-family lots, and so there wouldn't be a mixture. There would be one house per lot, and so therefore 100% of the units would be made to our affordable housing standards.
Very good, thank you. Will there be a mandated on-site management?
Madam President, Councilor, we don't anticipate any rental opportunities, although there might be, depending on what we're receiving back in terms of information. For the most part, this will be home ownership opportunities, and therefore there wouldn't be a rental manager in place.
Okay, thank you. Is affordability being offset by other funding, such as from HUD?
Madam President, Councilor, in this case, again, as we have earlier discussed, this is just an RFI for information. So we don't have ongoing new funds coming with this, if in fact at some point we put these properties for RFP.
Okay, thank you. I know that you're trying to get some information, so are we. So agreed, and it's all good. More communication we have, the better. Do these city-owned properties have to go through the RFP or RFI process?
Madam President, Councilor, yes. So to be clear, there's no mandatory issue ordinance to put things for RFI. Again, we were just looking for information. However, in the future, if we do have these properties and we put them to RFP, the mannerism by which we identify developers that are appropriate for specific kinds of housing have to go through currently through our RFP process, and that is mandatory by ordinance.
Thank you. Are we requiring a pro forma from the respondents to show that developers can afford to maintain these properties and keep them affordable for tenants?
Madam President, Councilor, so again, in this RFI, we're not requesting information. However, when we do put out an RFP, yes, there are mandatory kind of fiscal and administrative issues we look for, such things as profit and loss statements, sources and uses statements, audits. So we have a whole host of different financial tools that we look at to make sure that the developer has the ability to not only build the development, but subsidize the development. And if it's a rental, keep it affordable. And if it's a homeownership opportunities, may ensure that the people who are within that homeownership are in accordance with our guidelines.
Very good. Thank you for those answers. Let's see here. Are we also offering tax abatement?
Madam President, Councilor, to my knowledge, there's only one property that's actually in an MRA, so that would be the only one where there might be some opportunity for tax abatement. However, we work very closely with the MRA, and we've divided the lots that we have available. So the lots that are available under the MRA may have that opportunity to be able to have a tax abatement. However, again, that hasn't been discussed at this time since we're at a very early stage.
Got it. Thank you. 2 more questions. What length of what length of time for the tax abatement on those MRA properties?
Madam President, I'm not the one to ask for that particular question because these aren't our merit properties, but I believe it's a 7-year period of time, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's the right answer. I think that's what I understand as well. I just wanted to make sure. And is that time, is that a state mandated or is that city ordinance?
Madam President, Councilor, I don't know.
Okay. I'm thinking it's state mandated, but we'll look into that. So thank you for those answers. Helps us all get along, or, find out all the information we need to. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Counselor, if you have other questions, do you mind if we go to Counselor Rogers for HHH?
Of course, go ahead.
Thank you, Counselor Rogers.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm excited to see this. This is something that I've been talking to the administration about for a year and have something introduced to come up with our own fixed price program similar to kind of what we're trying to do here. My big question is for home ownership. That's why I think I'm most excited. This is not rentals. This is a way that I fought hard in Housing Forward when I worked for the mayor to add affordable home ownership options. But my question is, how are we going to make sure that the folks who get this land either very cheap or donated through the RFP process, they don't turn around and charge the homeowner on top of the building for the land that they didn't pay for? Because then it's not affordable home ownership, right? Then we're still going to be in the same boat. So how do we plan for that in these contracts with these developers that are going to build these homes, that they're not charging the folks who are buying this, the end user, for the land they did not pay for?
Madam President, Councilor, thank you very much for that question. So remember, the Affordable Housing Act is not the Affordable Land Act or just Affordable Free Money Act. It's actually affordable housing. So we have to ensure when we actually put out RFPs that the end product is taken care of, meaning that a person of income only pays the amount that they're being paid for. Now, what we do in order to make sure that we're not in accordance with that we're in accordance with the Affordable Housing Act is the asset base. Let's say it's land, and actually we have 2 RFPs out now for affordable housing home ownership right now. And so what we do is we monetize the value of the land, and of course we have and if there's funds in it, then we put a second on the property, and that second is transferred not only to the developer who's responsible, but to the homeowner, so that we ensure long-term affordability, and we ensure that making sure that we have control over the affordability of that unit. That's a soft second mortgage.
So yeah, that's what I was worried about. Adding a second mortgage to a first-time home buyer who's already low income worries me. So I just want to learn more. I mean, tonight's not the place for that, just in the interest of my other counselors' time, but I would love to. And part of my resolution that we'll be talking about soon talks about putting together a program like this, thinking of all those things that we could do together to get other folks to be able to help us with housing, especially when we talk about the ADAPT program and the ADAPT list. So I would love to learn more about this as a part of that too. Thank you, Madam President.
Dr. Singal.
Madam President, I just quickly wanted to answer Councilor Grout's question that the 7-year requirement is a state requirement. So hopefully you don't have to do a bunch more research.
Councilor Grout, we're back on you with additional questions.
Thank you. I appreciate that follow-up. So that's all I have for HHH. I just have a few questions for parks.
Madam President, Councilor Grout, Director Simon is here to answer questions around the parks.
Good evening, Director. Go ahead, Councilor.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Director, for being here. I thank you for your pictures today. We've had several constituents reach out to us. The parks haven't been mowed. There's a lot of weeds in them. They were brown for a very long time. I personally saw them that way. But now, can you tell me how are they, what's the schedule for mowing them and keeping them trimmed and all of that?
Okay. Madam President, Councilor Grout, first of all, apologize for my little bit of tired voice here tonight. That should help me stop from mansplaining too much. Maybe it's helpful. Councilor Grout, when it comes to mowing, the parks are on a weekly mow schedule. From time to time, a mow schedule can be interrupted by weather, shortage of staff, or the need to divert people to a more urgent maintenance situation. So occasionally, we will lose a week. It's not the goal, but most of the parks are on a once a week mow schedule. Your parks in your district, I think, are generally, we mirror last year, on a Wednesday and Thursday, I think, schedule.
Very good. Wednesday and Thursday, very good. And how about weeds? How are they controlled?
Well, Madam President, Councilor Grout, weed control's that's a complicated subject, and really I'll just say to do it effectively, the most important thing is strong turf, right? Weeds are, plants that occur naturally that we just may not want them in that place. But in general, the strongest defense for weeds is a strong offense, which is healthy grass. Now, it's challenging to grow healthy grass in the desert. We can't do it without a lot of water and inputs, but weed control ideally has to be sort of a year-round effort. So I would say that in addition to all the other things you got to do at parks, the fall is a time when we would typically want to be applying pre-emergent so that we can interrupt the cycle of those weeds. And then again in the spring, resources permitting, apply other weed control strategies. It's awfully hard to do these things after the spring because of the amount of hand labor involved. And some weeds are better controlled by hand, but if you don't have the adequate labor to do that, it can become challenging once they're growing.
Thank you. Were you able to control those weeds this spring? Did you have the resources to do that?
We did get a lot of pre-emergent down this spring. I do think that we'd like to do better, and weeds also grow on bare soil. So if you have bare soil out there, they'll take root. But I think we're trying to constantly improve and refine our processes, and they do have to occur year round. If you don't have the right labor, the right time to get all the work done, then the weeds can get an upper hand. And some of them just are awfully tough to get out at certain times of year.
Yes, they are. And one final question, do you have your staff, are you fully staffed for the summer to take care of your parks?
Well, I think, thank you, Madam President, Councilor Grout. I appreciate the question and the interest in us having adequate staffing. I think we are still facing some challenges from the labor market that are making it more difficult for us. I think historically, depending on staffing and labor availability, we would typically hire anywhere from around 40 to 60 temporary employees for the summer. Right now, we actually have under 20 of those temps due to turnover. Applications are down, and there's turnover is higher right now in these temporary positions, which of course wind up being on the lower end of the pay scale. So it has gotten more challenging both through large scale impacts, and conditions in the labor market, and of course what we see locally. So we're aggressively trying to recruit our employees every day, and we could use more of them right now. To encourage anybody who's listening who wants a job, we can give you one.
Thank you. I do have one follow-up to that. When you say temporary, I know that's a summer job or a 6-month job. Is that a full-time job for those 6 months, or that summer program or?
Yeah, Madam President, Councilor Grant, yes, when we bring on temporary seasonal labor, it is a full-time position.
Full-time? Okay. Anybody that's listening, we're hiring at parks. We need to keep those parks clean and beautiful for everybody to enjoy. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you, Director, for those answers. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Counselor Grab, do you have any other questions for other departments?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I'm sorry, Director, before you go, Director Simon, Counselor Rogers.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wonder, how do those positions, could they cross with the Better Way Forward program?
Madam President, Councilor Rogers, I think the Better Way Forward program has a targeted focus, I believe, on how they're employing the participants in that program. And I think there's a lot of need in the areas that they are targeting those employees. I would have to defer to them on how that group is being utilized. You know, we can always use more help, and so if there's more resources or more people available to do the work, you know, we can put them to work. I think there's been a sort of focus in standing that program up on a certain set of needs in the city.
Thank you, Madam President. I think the needs of cleaning up our parks kind of overlap. So I think we should take a look at that and see how we could cross those two programs to fill some of your temporary vacancies. Thank you.
Counselors, any other questions or comments for the administration? Thank you, Director. Thank you, everyone. There being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.